Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxxTV's podcast 270. Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, alongside Johnny V.
How come you get your full name, Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, and I just get Johnny V? People might want to know my last name is Van Derzen.
Okay.
Nobody cares. I know.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
I think you're right.
It literally just hit me I just have Johnny V and you have Terry Miller.
Do you have another
the
nickname?
Disc golf guy.
Do you have one that you think is appropriate or suitable?
No. You call me JV.
Occasionally.
Family has always called me John growing up.
Stupid head. Ugly face.
Yes.
A few of those come to mind as well.
Jolly Green Giant I've been called in the past.
But no.
Lovable. People have called me Lovable.
Yeah. Only when they need something.
Probably.
Hey, Lovable, can you fix my computer?
Exactly. That too.
You go by Johnny V.
I go by Johnny V or JVD.
And if we were out and about, even if you and I were, say, doing sideline reporting together, like Madison Walker and myself did, or Jamie Thomas and I this weekend, I would then also refer to you as just Johnny V. That's all you'd get.
That's fine.
Damn right it is.
I don't really care that much. It just hit me, and I just thought it would be something fun to bring up.
Well, we are here. This is podcast. I believe it's 270. And I am back here in the studio momentarily, back here in the state, in the country, as I will be venturing back off. In fact, I don't even know if next Tuesday night will be a night that I will be physically present. I believe, if we've done some math correctly, I think when I'm in Croatia, it's like 4 a.m. there.
Okay.
During our show. So I just thought of it now that next week I will definitely not be getting up at 4 a.m. just to give a little update from
No, I don't
Croatia.
Expect it. I'll find a better co-host with a better nickname.
You certainly can. But that will be happening next week. Next Monday night, I believe, I will be heading out with Johnny Rumble and Gary to the O. And we'll check in from Croatia. It just won't be at that time during the podcast. So tonight we're going to have Dana Vici. He's going to join us for a little while, get some updates from him. And as I need to update the show notes, we're actually going to have our Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship finale winner, and still, I think as they would say, Chris Dickerson. He's going to be joining us tonight, and we'll get a little insight out of him. We don't catch up with him quite as often as we should throughout the year. He's in a camper. He's not always totally accessible. He clearly wins plenty when he's out and about. But it will be great. We'll be catching up with him and talk about what all went down in the Queen City this last weekend. So super excited to do so. And I think that's going to be the majority of the show. Of course, we'll have some other odds and ends. We'll probably have an after show, yada, 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 as Elaine would say. But I think that's going to be the overall scoping premise of the show tonight. Recap, Disc Golf Pro Tour, talk with Chris, and go from there. So
it was a great Pro Tour finale, let me just say. It was great on every aspect that I can think of from my side, as far as the excitement, the broadcast, all the media, the sideline reporters, cameramen. What a great weekend.
Yeah, and with my boots on the ground, so to speak, a huge shout-out, of course, has to go to the Charlotte Disc Golf Club. They recognized that they felt like, yes, we didn't get quite as much lead time as maybe we'd like. They do have a full year now, as we know we're going to be there again next year, but they were very excited, very gracious. 550 members, I think, is the number that I heard at one point. And this great staff, volunteers, so many hands on deck, taking care of the course, taking care of extracurriculars, and so many things that were happening there. You just can't say enough. And I know we had that very lengthy beat-to-death conversation a few months ago about mechas. Well, they, of course...
they fit the bill.
They do, and then some. And super excited. So I want to extend, on behalf of us over here at SmashBoxx and really all of the Pro Tour, I'm sure, just want to extend yet another thanks, a tip of the hat, kudos, all of those things to the Charlotte Disc Golf Club. They're just so gracious. And it really makes me jealous as I've traveled to so many places around the country now, around the world, when you see a club that, of course, I'm sure behind closed doors they have a few disagreements, and I'm sure not everybody loves everybody, but to have so many people come together to help pull off an event, very envious of that kind of cohesiveness that is at least portrayed on the outside. And maybe everybody does love everybody. I wish that. I doubt it, but I wish it. But they did great. So, all right. With all of that, someone that I'm really excited to talk to, get our weekly update, will also hear about a really unique event that took place in one of Illinois' finest prison facilities.
A lot of the competitors, I heard, just had to step out of their rooms to play.
Ouch, I knew you'd go there. All right, let's bring in Dynamite.
Boom goes the dynamite.
Dynamite.
Man, AJ Risley. I missed that kid. He did a great job with that intro.
Are
Where's
we
he at
suggesting that it's overdue and that we could use a new one 4 years later?
Has it been 4 years? This podcast has been going for 4 years?
5?
Oh, boy.
No, but this is almost exactly probably 4 year. No, 5.
Because if it's 270, about one a week, you're looking at 52 times
yeah, plus
5.
a few extras. And I was going to say we started Smashbox in 2014, and at the end of 2014, we said, man, we should try and be relevant in the offseason. And then a podcast unfolded, and here we are still not relevant as we're babbling for hours and hours. But holy cow, yeah, that's probably close to 5 years old. So talk about shelf life.
Oof. It's stood the test of time, I would say.
It's a classic at this point.
It is.
Yeah.
Dana, let's lead with. We're going to get to the finale, but let's lead with Incarcerated 2. It's all over. I'm almost sick of seeing it in my Facebook feed just because we have so many mutual friends. It was such a big event. Bobby Brown and Dynamic Disc was involved, and it is truly. I'm envious that I was not there for a second year in a row. But break down this event. You and your wife were there. Tell everyone what in the world I'm referencing.
Yeah, so I'm talking about the Incarcerated event run by Delwood Disc Golf in conjunction with the Joliet Historical Society. I might have butchered that part, but it's a pop-up disc golf event in the old Joliet prison. It's a historic site. The prison opened in 1858, way back when. It's housed many inmates, many famous ones like John Wayne Gacy, but just a really unique place. Very old, very different from last year. So last year was the first event, and they were just starting to do other events there as well. And from over the last 12 months, they've really cleaned up the inside of the prison grounds. It was overgrown, lots of poison ivy, just whatever you could imagine, just growing. And it's been cleaned out, and they're starting to do lots of different events and tours. And sure enough, the disc golf event was a huge hit last year. So of course, doing it again, they expanded it to 2 days, 3 tee times during the first day. I'm not sure how many tee times they had second day, but it filled up in, I think, 13 minutes. I was actually doing my fantasy football draft, and DG Mike sent me a text. He said, wow, this is filling up quick. And I said, sign me up. I totally forgot. So he signed Ashley and I up and got us in at the 3 p.m. tee off. But yeah, it was ran by Sean at Delwood and some of the Trinity crew, Mark. Big effort from a lot of people. Amazing event. They had food truck, they had beer vendors. You could only come in during your tee time. You can't just come out and hang out, unfortunately. So Ashley and I got there about 2:30, half hour before our tee time. Talked to some people, played a few holes, and then it was time to play disc golf. And we played around the prison grounds, in and gosh, I got to stop there because I'm saying again. It was brought to my attention last week that I dropped quite a few ums and uhs, so I got to apologize.
No offense, but and he's a good friend of mine, and I'm not afraid to call him out a little bit. But take a listen to Dixon Jower's podcast if you want some ums. It's part of his vocabulary. It's once you hear it, it's hard to unhear it. And I think that's just, as we've always talked about, everybody has crutch words they rely on. It is very difficult to break those habits.
Well, at least you called out somebody else on it.
Oh, I totally did. I've been meaning to for a while,
Harsh.
and I didn't know of a good way to do it. So here you go. Dixon will never listen to this anyway, probably. So don't tell him I said it. Shh. No, he's guilty of the ums as well, not just you.
Well, I apologize. I'm going to work on it, but it is difficult thing to break. Anyways, we got out playing around the prison grounds. Ton of fun, mostly fun, shorter par threes, couple in the mid 350s. We did go into a building where you played from one room into another, and the room we teed off in had a ton of really cool graffiti that was not there while the prison was operating. The place has it's seen some damage and some graffiti and other things over the years. It's kind of been dilapidated, but as I said, it's coming back. We're seeing the Historical Society do a lot of great things there. They're having prison break-ins, do another food truck and all kinds of other things there. But one of the exciting things is the money from last year is going to fund a disc golf course on the property across the street that the Joliet Park District, I believe, owns. So there's going to be another disc golf course in the area, and this event directly benefits that course. The course is not in the ground yet. Mark Grabavoy and Sean Callahan are working on that, and others, I'm sure. But just an incredible event, ton of fun, good vibes all around. Music playing, people dressed up as inmates, people dressed up as the Blues Brothers, because of course this was where the opening scene of the Blues Brothers was filmed, and a few other scenes. Prison Break was filmed there. Lots of movies have been filmed on this location over the years, but incredible event, ton of fun. I suggest coming. It's kind of a bucket list type thing. You only get to play one round. There's not payouts. They do trophies for the top 3. But there's a ton of other great courses around, including Delwood, which is just minutes down the road.
Well, let's not make it on the Pro Tour finale next year, so maybe some of us could, like Terry and I could show up. That'd be fun.
Yeah, man. Pick a different weekend.
Gosh.
Yeah, see you and Gio and Rumble. The whole crew come down to my neck of the woods, see if you make it out alive. You get shanked.
One's got to wonder, why did it close, Dana? Any reasons? It couldn't have been from a lack of business. Right?
Old building, man. As I said, the first buildings were built in like 1858. So it obviously had gone through many updates and new buildings as well. And across the street, another campus, if you will. But pretty old, and just couldn't quite handle today's criminals, I guess.
My guess is that it just probably costs too much to renovate and update the prison with whatever modern amenities would be needed, as opposed to just building a new prison. And in Illinois, you can't have enough prisons.
Johnny's doubling down on that.
I did. I'm sorry.
All right, Dana. Well, in all seriousness, it does obviously look like a really unique event. We've seen things like going to stadiums, whether it be baseball or NFL, MLB, or NFL stadiums. We've seen, I think, a few college stadiums. I know we've got a raceway here in Wisconsin that's been played, a raceway out in the East Coast that's been played on. So we're finding all these cool, unique places to play disc golf. So to have it in a prison yard, like you're mentioning, and having it there for the second year in a row, clearly it feels like it's been a highlight of so many people, and that's why we said our Facebook feed is just completely lit up with it. Again, I know there's a little bit of a regional bias to that because of the friends that we have and because of where we're at, but having also someone like the media stud in Bobby Brown from Dynamic Disc there, I'm sure that helped continue to just elevate the notoriety and the presence of that entire event. So very cool to see, and in all seriousness, hats off to all the guys and gals that are putting it on down there, that are making this unique experience for everyone. And hopefully we'll find a way to be able to get down there and check it out for ourselves someday.
Yeah, it really does look awesome. I'm jealous, truly jealous that it's one of those experiences that I have not been able to do. I know it's only its second year, but both years, my understanding is that it's been on weekends where we have been busy with broadcasting. So I'm crossing my fingers that maybe next year it falls on a weekend where we're not broadcasting. But who knows?
Bobby Brown, Cool Daddy Slick Breeze, Dynamic Disc, they were there, as you mentioned. So keep an eye out for his video. I don't know if it's dropped yet. We had a bunch of our wonderful photographers, Jenny Cook, Ryan Nick, of course, the disc golf photographer, Lauren Lakebird. They were there all weekend taking and exploring, taking great pictures. So make sure you hit up their Instagrams, their pages, Facebook pages, or websites.
It's a big deal when you get Jenny Cook out and about. I know she's been preoccupied with family life and doesn't play the way her and her husband used to quite as often. But it was great to see her along with Lauren and, like you said, Ryan Nick all out there documenting alongside Bobby coming up for it and experiencing it. All right, Dana, we've got about 10 to 12 minutes for you that remain before we get with our champion. How did you consume? I know it was a busy week and everything you just mentioned regarding this, and there's fantasy and there's just straight up autumn living these days and the fall life out there. But how did you consume the Disc Golf Pro Tour finale this weekend?
Most of my consumption was via UDisc Live. I was live following along the action. Was that on Friday, day one? The day Nate Doss called Colin Montgomery a number of times. There I am with the again, but took it in via video that first day. Just didn't have a chance to tune in. Not that I didn't want to over the weekend. It was mostly on UDisc and texting friends and just watching social media.
And any crazy surprises for you? Of course. Yeah. On the MPO side, we saw so much more play, just more participants on that MPO side. But any really shocking or crazy surprises?
Absolutely. Really, kind of a mind-blowing one. I didn't realize it. I was watching the scores, as I said, but watching that card, the Jeremy Colling, Nate Perkins card. I caught the back nine of Joe Mez because I wanted to see a couple of those players tied, and it comes down to tour points. And Nate Perkins and Jeremy Colling are on the same card. They didn't realize that Nate had Jeremy by 0.2 in the tour points. And so they were playing going into the final hole. Nate, thinking that he had to birdie, has the box, throws a not too great shot. I think right around circle 2. And then Germ comes up and just is playing it for the 3. Hey, I've got him. And then Presnell is in the action as well. Presnell actually knows the points. And Nate Perkins and Germ both they're a little mixed up. But anyways, Presnell has a chance to beat them both and hit a putt. He misses. Germ gets the par. Perkins tries throwing in, gets the par. Germ thinks he's moving on.
Now,
he wasn't.
Did you hear?
But alas,
did you hear why he thought that?
He thought that because of the teen order.
Yes.
I believe Germ had the box on the tee, so they meaning Germ and Nate Perkins assumed that Germ had the points.
The higher,
when in fact, I don't even know how 0.2. Perkins had Germ by 0.2, but just absolutely mind blowing watching it, and watching it live, and then going and watching the Jomez round. I went right to the back nine because I wanted to watch that, and I didn't realize they had no idea. How does that happen?
Yeah, Germ thought because his name was higher on the card when they teed off that he had him by tour points, but ultimately the way that the tour looked at it was that everybody was at 0. I don't even know if they took tour points into account when they put the names down versus
they didn't,
which clearly they didn't. So it was really up to the player, the players to find out where they were standing compared to the other players. Now I can understand Germ's thought process. I understand the logistics of it, but I kind of feel like it's on Germ and Nate to know that information 100%. So
I agree, and one look at UDisc, our great friends at UDisc have it so the point, it shows the point leader. If there was a tie, it shows them up top. They could have just taken a peek at that, but I mean, I don't know. That's one of the events where you are looking at UDisc and looking at the scores and seeing what you have to do, and for them to not quite realize it, and then just that, I can only imagine the emotions of it. Germ thinking he's moving on to the next round, Nate thinking he's been eliminated. I mean, thankfully Nate made his comeback putt. He tried throwing a skip shot to skip it in for the 2, and didn't need it. Just needed the par, and with Presnell and over on the edge of circle 2 and waiting to jam a putt and maybe spoil both of their days. But Nate Perkins moved on. He eventually did not move on to the final round, as he eliminated Germ. Man, how long, Terry, do you know when Germ found out that he wasn't making it? Was it immediate? Was it later?
It was quite heated, and I'm going to say not wildly uncomfortable, but it was a little awkward for a moment. They got done. They started adding, I think they added up the scorecard, or they knew exactly where it was. And if I recall, Germ and Nate kind of both looked at one another and like, well, you got me by points, or do you have me by, like, there was definitely still confusion. And that's when Germ had stated, well, yeah, I was on the card ahead of you. So, I was on the teeing order. So I had to have you in points. And then at some point, almost immediately, it was looked up that Nate, in fact, had him by 0.2 points. And there's no better way to put it. Germ lost it. He was beside himself. He was very vocally frustrated and heated about it. And he just kept saying he didn't more or less, he didn't understand the logic as to why, if he was listed first, he wouldn't have been, in fact, ahead of Nate in the points. And he said, well, that messes my whole game plan. Like, I laid up on the final hole thinking that I had him. And someone had said, and now I wasn't at the tee when they teed off. I was at the green when this was going down, because I think we just conducted some interviews prior. And I guess it was seen or heard at the tee that when Nate threw his tee shot, you could, I guess, audibly hear, or at least through another account, someone said, Germ said, oh, well, that changes my game plan. And he more or less went for a safer layup type shot to just go for the 3, which in all actuality, he needed to beat him outright. So that was his angle and his perspective, is saying, I played that final hole with the understanding or the assumption that because I was listed in the teeing order prior to Nate, that I, in fact, had him in points. And so that was his major frustration. I think it's fair to say his major frustration was he even played the final hole with that in mind, because he said it didn't make sense to have it any other way.
0.2 points. That has to be due to
that's just
ties
ties
during the year. So if you think about it, as I said to Nate at one point, Doss, that's one stroke.
Oh, yeah.
Through the entire Pro Tour. So 10 events, or how many ever Germ went to, 7, 6, 8, that one stroke, one missed putt, one roll away, one spit through, one just
One Nomez,
one
as
Nomez.
Germ could call.
It was the difference between him advancing from the quarters to the semis. So
Well,
to think that every once in a while you will see players nonchalantly throw a disc or get frustrated and maybe don't put 100% effort in. This is the exact reason why you can't do that, why every stroke matters in the Pro Tour.
Well, and
Steve said it best a few years back. I think it was the big tour points matter.
Yep. Yeah, there was a protest in the streets over it, and then other tours can't. No, I'm just kidding. But yes, that is exactly it. There's no better way to sum it all up than to say exactly that. Tour points matter. There's an advantage to being at more events, to performing, to having that consistency, whatever you want to call it. They all matter, and this is an exact reason why. Now, I want to bring this full circle before we let you go. The starter, Dave, had said, yeah, I was just writing them down. He said, and I'm not trying to throw UDisc or Yenny under the bus here, but he said they were randomly listed. If you look at a UDisc scoring sheet that they print out every morning for a scorekeeper, there were 4 names. They read kind of in a stacked form, so it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on how someone would either read them off of there or would jumble it up. However, in reading 4 names that are not even in a single vertical list, like that could have been the difference too. And that's where he was getting the names as he was putting them on the scorecard. I mean, or think like in Illinois or some other states, frequently they'll hand out a scorecard and it won't have the names on, and the card mates themselves are obligated to list their names themselves. Like there's so many scenarios here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's still at the end of the day to not check it is it's mind blowing. But hey, whatever. A long season, tour points matter. Maybe next year, Germ.
Yeah. So Germ was understandably he was frustrated. One could argue whether or not they loved the way he handled it. It was a heat of the moment. He had some, I'll say vocal words. I guess that's obvious. He was vocal about his displeasure of it, and plenty of the people that were around saw and witnessed just that. And it was a tough pill to swallow. I don't blame him for being frustrated, but like you just said, these are also professionals. They've played 10 events. This tour has been around for 4 years now. There's some details that you shouldn't just assume, and that you should probably make sure this is your job. So
yeah,
we'll drop the Germ thing and let's just finish up talking about MPO real quickly. Dana, so we can just real quickly breeze over the FPO, and then we will probably get more in depth into that a little bit later. But finish walking us through the MPO field.
Yeah, so the MPO field, that final that round we were talking about was to get into the semis, and quite a few people made the semis, but only 4 were moving on. Previous years we've seen 5 players on that championship day, but this year just 4, and those 4 moving on were Chris Dickerson, Drew Gibson, Calvin Heimberg, Kevin Jones. My dark horse, Paul Oman, 51st in Pro Tour points. He wasn't getting any tiebreakers, but he battled through day 1, made it through the semi, made it into the semis. So shout out to him, but did not ultimately make it onto that lead or that final day for a Cinderella run or to make a fool out of himself like I did a few years ago. But anyways, lead card, Chris Dickerson, Drew Gibson, Heimberg, Kevin Jones. It was a battle. Came down to the wire between Chris and Calvin. Thought Calvin was going to really end his year on an amazing note. Not that finishing second in the Pro Tour finals is not amazing, but to win it after winning the National Tour and the Hall of Fame Classic would have been insane. Calvin hit a big putt on 17, but then Chris comes and birdies 18 to get the win by 1 throw. Pretty exciting stuff.
it was funny because Doss had even before they were throwing, Nate was saying that he likes to predict, and he had predicted Dickerson early on, but going into that final hole, he was saying that he thought that hole actually favored Dickerson because Calvin, being a long thrower, actually had to control his distance more, had to pull back, and as opposed to Dickerson, who that's for him now. Dickerson throws far, but that particular shot is 400 plus feet, slightly 486, slightly downhill. That was much more of a full pull for Dickerson. Now, I'm sure Dickerson can throw it a little further if he wanted to, but that's virtually max distance. So you have to control a little less. You just have to rely on your favorite disc or whatever you're going to throw and put it on a line, as opposed to Calvin that maybe had to do a little bit more control throw. And that's kind of how it played out. Calvin came up short. Dickerson parked it. And that was end of story.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Calvin, I think, threw his eagle. I mean, he's not even going full out.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, he still didn't even have to throw full power, or he could throw full power with something like an eagle. He still wasn't even clubbed all the way up to a distance driver. I don't know if I would have solely based it on that, but Doss looks really smart now after it's all finished.
That is what Doss had said coming into the hole. Even
that's fine.
So I'm just relaying what our 3-time world champion said,
and that's why he's in the booth and I'm not.
You're tearing me up about and then you're tearing Nate up about his call. Wow.
Exactly.
I know Chris is waiting to come on, but I do want to touch base on the FPO side.
Mm-hmm.
This was a lot of fun to watch. Scores wise, coming into the final round, wasn't too big of a surprise who ultimately made it. We had Paige, Pierce, Rebecca Cox. Nice to see her coming off that injury and being able to play and play well. Sarah Hokum has been playing really good, and Katrina Allen, who's also having a tremendous year, albeit for some putting woes. And I think I said last week, watch out if Katrina can figure out her putting. She's gonna do some things. And to see her come out on top this weekend, I had to go through and check out her putting stats to see, that final round, what the difference was if she's making her putts. And it was kind of the same thing that we've seen from her of late, struggling inside the circle. That final round, she had 2-3 putts in the circle and 4 2-putts. So throwing the disc tremendously well, just not putting it in the basket. And ultimately, it came down to the final hole, hole 18. Both her and Sarah Hokum were, they were tied. Yeah. And Sarah had a jump putt, circle 2 jump putt, did not make it, made her 16-footer for par. Katrina was inside the circle, had another circle 1 putt, 2 putted to go into a playoff. And then what happened in that playoff, Terry?
Sarah, who I think went 2 down on the previous 2 times of playing it, had gone birdie. She walked, and Katrina, conversely, I think had gone bogey in the 2 times she had played hole number 1. So Sarah was 2 down as opposed to Katrina's 2 over. They get to the playoff. They both actually hit I believe the exact same tree, left center fairway. Sarah's kicks hard to the right. Kat's kicks to the right as well, but not quite as far if I recall. Kat puts it up there right next to the basket. Sarah has a much, much more obstructed line.
It was about just outside of the circle. It looked like it was probably 35, 40 feet.
Yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood.
With, a straddle putt, which Sarah's pretty comfortable with, but with that distance, and it was slightly uphill, it looked like, as well.
Yeah, and she just couldn't convert, and Kat had that tap in to claim it. So, you like to say putting wins championships. That's not what's been winning. She's finding a way to get it done lately. That's Katrina when she does win, but it's not necessarily from her putting. So to double down on what you're saying, Dana, she clearly is getting it done in other spots on the course where even her putting woes, she's able to just barely overcome them. And of course, Sarah, who's playing so hot and so confident, this one just slipped right out from under her. I'd say this: if, and it woulda, coulda, shoulda, and we know this isn't how it's played, but if those two were committed for some reason to an 18-hole additional round, I think Sarah comes back out on top, which is, I know, an absurd situation. I know where Sarah's confidence is right now. She's talked about it a lot. And
I don't know. I don't think I could say that, because
okay, well, you could be wrong.
The way Sarah was carving up the woods was phenomenal, but Kat's drives were, they were putting her in position. And as we saw in that front 10, Kat had a lot of struggles in the putting green, but then suddenly it was like a light switch. She started putting pretty well.
Yeah, at a certain point, she seemed like she didn't care.
You're right.
And then, and we all know sometimes when you don't care, they seem to go in so easy.
Maybe you're putting a little less thought into it, and maybe there's a little less stress and pressure. But Kat just made her way through that back nine very well, where we saw some of the other women stumble a bit.
I love the fact that if you go at UDisc and you look at holes 1 and 2 to start that final round, Kat went 4-4, which is bogey. Sarah went 2-2. So right off the bat, four throws behind Sarah, and Sarah kind of just cruising, and then Katrina just didn't give up. Eagle on 13, follows it up with a birdie, then double bogeys, and it's like, oh no. But comes back, doesn't give up. 16 and 17 birdies, has the birdie look on 18, ultimately wins the playoff. So pretty exciting stuff, and just a testament of not giving up and not letting the putting woes on the green get to you, because I've been there a lot. You guys have been there. It's easy to get down and out. And Katrina, she didn't do that. She stuck with it, and here she is, Disc Golf Pro Tour champion, National Tour champion. Not too bad of a year for her.
Tenacity.
Yeah, and that round, particularly for the FPO, up until about hole 13, was as close as you could ask for.
Yeah.
It was so much fun to watch. So if you get the chance, if you haven't gone out, please go out and watch that footage. Either go watch the live, or I think Central Coast has it on theirs in the post-production. Go take that in and watch these women just battle it out on that course. It is a lot of fun.
All right, Dynamite, like you said, we've got Chris Dickerson waiting in the digital green room, where he's about to be, actually. So we're going to catch up with him. As always, we appreciate your insights, and thanks for the updates and the information about Incarcerated 2. And we'll talk to you probably next week. Maybe you'll have to be the main you could be the main guy here along with Johnny.
Yeah, Dana.
Oh boy.
Lucky you.
Put some pressure on me, and my and ums. I'm gonna have to keep working on it. I don't know if I could spend more than 30 minutes on here without driving.
You'll be just fine, Dynamite. All right, buddy. Have a good night. We're gonna catch up with Chris now, but thanks for joining us.
Yep. Congrats to Chris, Katrina, Disc Golf Pro Tour, Smashbox, Smashies. We'll see you.
Thanks,
Later.
Dana.
All right, and as we said, hanging out in our digital green room. Looks like he's ready to play some more golf. I think he's got baskets. This guy doesn't quit. Road warrior extraordinaire, our champion, Chris Dickerson. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing pretty good. How are you all?
We're great.
Couldn't be any better.
We're not, defending Pro Tour finale champions or anything.
We seem to talk to you about this time every year. When we pulled you up on Skype, it had literally said last spoke to 1 year ago. So you have a tendency to join our show right after the Pro Tour finale every year. Are you making a habit of this?
Well, it's been that way the past couple of years, and I would like to make a habit out of it.
Yeah, what do they? How long before a habit? Is that 30 days or 3 weeks? I don't know. Well, you win plenty. But you also take a little different approach. I mean, I know I said it in the final interview. You played more golf in the fewest amount of strokes, but you played more golf than anyone else out there this weekend in Charlotte. What was your road to lining that up? And talk about how much golf you had to play.
So, yeah, I did have to play 4 rounds instead of getting a bye or 2 buys. So, the first round on the course is always going to be, well, unless you just go out there and have a really good round, it should be a little rougher just because the more you play it, the more you get to know the course and know where to be, where not to be. So I think over a few more rounds, I got to know the course a little bit better. But at the same time, I had more opportunity to mess up.
Yeah, you went 7 under, which was I believe it was the hot score first round. Then you went 7 under again. Then you went 9 under, and then 9 under again. Only Philo with his double digits 10 was a hotter score than yours.
Right.
So
I love how factual you are.
Well, yeah.
He's like, yeah, Johnny, I kicked.
He's like, yeah, I was there. I know.
Do you feel like that attributed to getting to know the course better? Where you I know I mentioned it earlier. You only had 3 bogeys on the weekend, which I think is just disgusting. How do you get through that kind of a track with just 3 bogeys?
Well, being mostly wooded course, staying in the middle really helps a lot. And also some luck. Some luck never hurt.
Do you feel like you had any more or less than the next guy? I mean, you played 3 rounds with Philo, for instance, and fair or not, he sometimes feels like luck doesn't go his way. But do you feel like you have any more or less? I mean, out there when you're talking about such a wooded fairway, literally 6 inches can mean a world of difference of having a nice big run up or being forced to throw a forehand or being out of position. Does anything stand out for you one way or another?
I haven't really thought about it, but not really. I'm sure I got lucky at least a couple of times, but I don't remember it happening often or really getting unlucky more than just a couple of times. So either way, it felt like it evened out.
Yeah, it almost always does. I know a lot of people are known for being really unlucky or known for being, exceptionally lucky. It all evens out at the end of the day, one way or another. At the end of the tournament, maybe it feels like it does. So, as you said, you got to learn the course. How many rounds did you play the course? When did you get to town, and how many practice rounds did you put in on the course?
I got to town on Wednesday beforehand, around lunchtime. I played a full round on Wednesday and came back in the evening. I think I played at least 9 more holes. So a round and a half on Wednesday, and then Thursday, definitely a full round, and then maybe a few more, at least 9 more holes, maybe a few more than 9.
And when you left on Thursday, so it's the eve of the tournament, you leave Thursday night. There was a great players party down at the Piedmont Social Club or Social House. When you walked off that course, what were your thoughts when you put your head down on your pillow the night before the event? What were your thoughts of the course?
I actually kind of went through the course hole by hole and thought about where I needed to be and what shots I needed to throw and stuff like that. And being a wooded course, I felt pretty good about it. But you never know. You can go into a round, you can go back to luck. What you were saying earlier, you can have everything go your way or none of it go your way. It just depends on, just what's going to happen that day. And I felt pretty good going into it the day before.
What was there? Do you feel like it tested all of your shots, forehands, backhands, any rollers, trick shots, anything like that you felt, maybe you had an advantage over someone else?
Maybe not an advantage, but it definitely tested a lot of different shots. I threw more backhands than forehands, but I definitely threw a good amount of forehands out there, and I also had to get out of trouble with some rollers, forehand rollers, and trying to think. I think I may have went backhand roller one time, but I definitely had to throw some overhands, tomahawks, thumbers.
So you are the back-to-back Pro Tour Championship winner on 2 different courses. The Pro Tour hasn't been around long enough, but you're the only back-to-back winner ever, so congratulations on that. Do you feel...
Thank you.
Did you feel any more comfortable on this course as opposed to the course in Jacksonville? Do you have a preference on the 2 courses? This one obviously much more technical. The one in Jacksonville is much more open. Is there a preference that you have?
Yeah, between the 2 different styles of courses, I definitely have a preference to be in the woods instead of just wide open golf. But I mean, last year and the year before, we played the Jacksonville course 2 years in a row. And the year before, I didn't make it past the first round. Last year, I was able to go first round to 4th round, and it all comes down to what kind of day you're having, what kind of weekend you're having. But going back to your question, yeah, definitely prefer to be in the woods over a more open course.
And I think everyone kind of heard your answer if you were watching the live broadcast, but I'll bring it up for our viewers. This format this year was different. Last year it was win your card and move on with a wild card position. So if you did happen to have, a really hot round and you were pushing somebody else, you may still get that advance. This year it was strictly based on score. Did you like this year better than last year as far as the format?
Yes, because it only mattered about score. There were 16 players the first round, 8 advanced, 16 the second round, 8 advanced, and then there were 16 the third round, but only 4 advanced. And it was the 4 best scores. It wasn't like the year before where it was the winner of your card. I do like the 4 best scores because, last year I played on a card with Paul Macbeth, James Conrad, and Grady Shue. So 3 other really good players. And, 3 out of the 4 didn't really have a chance to advance. I take that back. There was a wild card last year. They did away with that this year. But even with the wild card, 2 out of 4 not going to advance.
Well, let's be real. With you on that card, they had no chance to advance. I mean, come on. You're killing them out there. But with regard to the format, it feels like there's maybe then less pressure as to exactly where you're seated, whether, because everyone was out there playing. Like in your case, someone could have finished a few positions higher or lower than you, and really it didn't even matter what card you were on. Some people like yourself would have had to play 4 rounds or 3 rounds, whatever the case might be. Your tour points didn't matter in that sense for the seed, but of course they mattered for a tiebreaker. So definitely a different philosophy this year, wouldn't you say?
Yes, 100%.
Do you like this? Do you like the fact that every round the scores reset? I mean, with you having arguably 4 of the hottest rounds out there, 7, 7, 9, 9, you would have had even more of an advantage over some of the players who got in with 6s and 5s that would push over. Do you like that aspect of the finale?
I think so. Yeah. Overall, just because I don't see it working out any other way. The players getting in later wouldn't really have a fair advantage or a fair chance, just because the players who do get past the first and second round, they wouldn't be able to, or the players would have more of an under par than the players coming in. And I mean, even if they gave them a bye score, like if they said you start out at 10 under because you made a bye or something like that, that there wouldn't be a fair way to do it.
Okay. Yeah, and that's a great analogy that I wasn't thinking. This is obviously a unique format at the end of the year. It's a change than what we've seen all year. I know they've had talks before of like a match play format or anything like that. Do you like the change in style, something a little different? Would you have any input if you could draw up your own finale? Do you like this method? Do you like a straight tournament? Maybe a match play? Like what would your preference be?
That's a really tough question, just because I mean we play just regular stroke play throughout the year, and we get this format at the end of the year, and there's a few of us on the East Coast that play a tournament called VTI, so that's the Virginia Team Invitational, and it's nothing but match play. And I do like the way match play is set up, but at the same time, you could get matched up with a bunch of players that are, 10-30 rated or above, and then there could be players in the other side of the bracket that could have an easier side of the bracket. And, it'd come down to basically the same thing as winning your card, where a whole card could play good and then 2 or 3 would get eliminated, and another card could play not so good, and one could get in off that card whenever they would lose to the 2 or 3 others on the card, or the opposing card.
Yeah, I think this clearly is a unique format. I think it's going to be tough to tweak it too much and yet have it be fair and unique, but yet specific to this event. And I guess that all leads really to another question about just the overall play. I know I harped on it that you've played more than anyone, but do you feel like that was any form of disadvantage? I mean, you had to play 2 on Thursday, 2 on Friday, 2 rounds on Saturday, 1 on Sunday, right?
No,
I'm sorry.
2-1-1.
2-1-1. I apologize. Like, that's more golf than almost any other tournament this year. When we think about almost all of your pro tours, all of your national tours, your worlds, all of your other majors, that's 1 round a day. And we're not on like a 6,000-foot course. This was 9,800 or, over 9,000 feet when it was all said and done. At any point, was there some kind of fatigue or anything that factored in for you?
Not really. I didn't feel fatigued or anything like that. I have played courses earlier this year that after you get done, your legs are tired, or your arms tired from throwing so many long holes. This one, the holes were long, but they weren't the longest holes that we see on the tour, and they were in the woods. So being in the woods, they can shorten up holes and still make par 4s that are tough. But playing 4 rounds, I don't feel like I was really at an advantage or really a disadvantage, just because I did get to practice the course more than anybody else. And on the opposite hand, I had more of a chance to get eliminated just because I had to play more rounds.
Is it a little sweeter knowing that you grinded harder than anyone else to take the victory? I mean, some of these guys just showed up.
You might have the most Pro Tour finale rounds of any player.
Yeah. Does it feel kind of sweet, like you earned it maybe just a tad more than the next guy?
Maybe a little bit.
So someone on the board asks us, walk us through hole 18. You're going into that hole tied with Calvin. It's, as Terry was saying, it's 486, I think, 488 feet, something like that. What are
you throwing? What are you thinking?
What are you looking at, Calvin? What are you thinking at that point that you need to do?
So I'll actually start with hole 16, not the entire hole, but after I missed the putt for birdie on, did I say 16? I meant 17.
Yeah. Okay.
After I missed the putt for birdie on 17, I didn't know the score. I hadn't looked at the score the entire round. So walking to the next tee pad, I looked at the score. I noticed we were tied. And going into that hole, the wind was similar to the other days. There was either no wind or maybe just a slight tailwind. So I wasn't going to change disc selection or anything like that. I'd been throwing a F1, so that's a slightly overstable fairway, and I've been getting pretty good results out of it. So Calvin went first. He threw an eagle, and he put it in circle 2. So, Calvin's a really good putter. So I figured I've got to put mine close to have a chance. And whenever I let my shot go, I thought it was going to turn, but there's always that little bit of doubt. Maybe it won't. But after I saw it turn and get past those trees, I was a little relieved, just because I'd done the first part, and now I've just got to go down there and do the second part.
There wasn't much of a second part. you had
12?
10, I was going to say 10, 12 feet to put in, and I haven't seen you miss a putt that short probably all year. You can probably remember one or two, I'm sure, but we haven't seen it. So that's
So address a debate from a little earlier when we had Dana on the show, and then also I guess Nate Doss was talking about it during the live. Is there any advantage to how hard you're throwing, in this case an F1, which is a fairway, it's not your distance driver, how hard you're throwing that as opposed to how hard and what Calvin's trying to accomplish with his fairway? Does his distance advantage or disadvantage him in that situation? Is he clubbing down? Does he have to maneuver anything any more special than you do?
I don't think so. We both have to club down a little bit, just because if I throw a D series or he throws a destroyer, we're gonna more than likely go long of that basket, and the OB is probably 30 feet, maybe a little bit more past that basket. So we're just clubbing down to a fairway to have a controlled flight, keep something a little straighter, and we still have to throw it hard, but not overly hard. So we're just trying to throw something controlled and hope for a putt.
When you're walking up, Calvin misses his putt. You have 12 feet, and I know this sounds crazy, but what goes through your head, even on a 12-footer, knowing this is for the win? You don't want, of course, anything to extend. Does anything go through your head whatsoever on that last 10 or 12-footer?
Yes, definitely. Kind of what was going through my head last year. Whenever I had a little bit longer of a putt last year. I think it was maybe 20 to 25 feet last year. But this, like you said, this year it was 15er in. So kind of the same thing. Like, you've got one putt. All you have to do is make one putt and it's over. But there's more nerves than I've ever felt, kind of similar to last year. I had not felt that kind of nerves during a tournament before.
Yeah, and then I know we talked about it in the interview, but Calvin is I think it's fair to say he's in your inner circle of one of your of your closest friends out there on the tour. Explain battling with someone like him as one of your closest friends.
It's fun to do, and I think whenever it comes down to it, if you would rather lose to somebody, I would rather lose to one of my close friends like Calvin than just somebody else. But at the same time, you don't want to lose, or at least I don't. I don't want to lose to anybody. So it's tough, but you kind of have to treat it like it's just another tournament.
Okay. Is it fair to say that you and Calvin are two of the most low-key players out on the course? I know you have your fun and you're joking around in your travel life, but when you're on the course, are you two of the most low-key guys in all of disc golf?
Yes, very much so.
Your answer says it all. Yes. Tell us, we're seeing a little bit more of Calvin through his Instagram, through some of his funny, very humorous posts. Give us a little insight. What are we missing? What are we misunderstood or missing out on from the peel back a layer or two for us? What are we missing on you?
Oh, on me.
Or Calvin as well, both of you.
Okay, so Calvin's Instagram. He has his own Instagram, and then there is, I think it's the real C. Heimborg.
Yep.
That's not Calvin.
Okay.
It's somebody else.
Okay.
Actually, it may even be a group of people that know where Calvin's going to be that weekend, and they just put posts together, and they have a lot of fun with it. And I know he enjoys it.
Yes, they have been very entertaining, and they're continuing to pick up speed.
I'm gonna have to subscribe to that.
Oh yeah, it's good. What about yourself? Give us a little more than we know how much you love camouflage and chicken. Give us something else a little more.
Oh goodness. Yeah. Whenever we're out at bigger tournaments like that, we'll try and spend time with our friends like Zach, Calvin, Kobe guys, all those guys. But whenever I'm not doing that, I've actually been spending a decent amount of time playing pool with Simon Lazat this year.
Playing what was that?
Pool.
Oh, pool. Okay.
And we know Simon's really good. Give yourself a rating and then rate Simon, or do it in the opposite order. If you guys had to rate, if you were rating both of you, what would you give?
Ooh. Okay, so if one's being just terrible, 10 is being a absolute professional, I would say Simon is 5 to 6. And I'm probably around 5 to 4.
So you compete with Simon. You're
But
in the
he's
same,
got the edge.
You're in the same ballpark, but Simon has the edge on you. Okay. With the Pro Tour,
Yes, for sure.
With the Pro Tour, we'll call it bonus that you just won, the $2,500, I believe it was. Anything special you're gonna buy? You're gonna a new pool stick to beat Simon, or?
No, not off the top of my head. We're looking forward to building a house. So I think any money that I'm really going to bring in here in the next year or two is probably going to be set aside, put back toward that.
And will that be in Tennessee?
Yes. Yeah, it'll be in Gray, Tennessee.
Okay. Now, the last few years, I've had the pleasure of running into you and your entire crew, as we'll call it, all the guys you hang out with. I think of Kobe, and I think of course, Zach and Calvin and all those guys down in Florida, South Florida Open. This isn't a full-blown paid plug for that or anything, but will I see you and the rest of the guys down there in December?
Yes. I'm pretty sure Zach's coming down. Kobe lives down there. Calvin, I'm sure he's going to be happy to be home after being out on tour the whole year. But I'll definitely be there. During the month of December, we kind of make a not really vacation, but a little bit of time to get away down there. My wife has grandparents and an aunt and an uncle that live down near Gainesville. So we go down there. Last year was the first year I played the Chain Hawk Open, and I believe that was the week before South Florida, and it's going to be the same this year. The Chain Hawk Open is going to be the week before, so we're going to go down there, spend time with them, and I'm going to get to play both of those tournaments.
Let's look at a little bit further into the future. This year, you more or less didn't go too far west of the Mississippi, if at all. Are your touring plans any different for next year? Are you going to hit any of the West Coast events, or are you still going to kind of maintain the East Coast, we'll say, swing of the tour, maybe from east of the Mississippi?
Yeah, I think I crossed the Mississippi twice this year. But, I mean, twice out of what everybody else is doing is not much at all. So I played Jonesboro and GBO. And GBO is the furthest west that I've been so far. But next year, we really are going to try and make it out to Worlds, and that's in Utah. So my wife really wants to go to the West Coast. I kind of don't. I just don't see, the money evening out. Well, I mean, we could probably even out, but I don't see making a good amount of money going that far, spending money while we're out there and all that stuff. But definitely going to try to get to Utah and maybe a few more bigger events that are in the Midwest.
Yeah, and to follow that up, as I pull up your PDGA stats, and this isn't a secret, everyone, your PDGA number is 62467, so if you want to look it up. It shows that you've played in 38 tournaments. I'm not sure that actually even also consists of the Pro Tour finale on here, but 38 tournaments, you have something like 21 wins this year. And there's some C tiers, B tiers, of course A tiers, so on and so forth. Is so much of your touring continuing to be really a dollars and cents perspective, like you just kind of mentioned, that going west is going to cost more money, more travel, and more expense, that you really look at this from more of a business side than anything?
For the most part, yes. Just because, I mean, if we don't have money, we can't do this. We could still probably do it, but we would have to get other jobs that, pay the bills, and then we could do this on the weekend, and we wouldn't have time to practice and stuff like that. So the way I look at it is I'm trying to make as much money as I possibly can without spending more than I have to. So if that means staying decently local and playing, pretty good sized B tiers and A tiers, I'll do that on, not very frequently, but every now and then, just to have a better chance at making more money, because nothing's a given. You've got to go out there and actually play well, but it just the better chances doing it that way.
Yeah, you're hedging your bets, so to speak, for lack of a better phrase, and I think it makes perfect sense. You're looking at it from a very practical standpoint.
Have you ever been to the West Coast, like in general?
I have not. I've actually never flown on a plane.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I mean, just to make her happy, one trip. That's all it takes. Just swing around, hit the ocean, and then head on back. Just make her happy now before life gets in the way.
Yep.
Last year there was a conversation, and the rumors are flying around already, and you're really not going to be part of them this year at all, because it was about this time last year it was made known that you locked into a 2-year deal with Prodigy. And I guess my one question would be, were there any contingencies? Is there room for negotiating to any degree as to what your contract was for next year based on your performances from this year? Is there still some wiggle room, hopefully in your favor? Or is your contract pretty much locked in exactly how it was set up, and it's going to be the same for all of next year?
I was just talking with somebody about this, and I do have the option to negotiate, and that was before the Pro Tour. So we were kind of talking about what I was asking for, what I would have to do to get that, and winning the Pro Tour, that helps me out a lot. That's for sure.
It's a little bit of leverage, they say.
I sense a Tom Cruise show me the money, or Cuba, I should say, show me the money meme flying around somewhere. Some good leveraging power.
That's right.
So next year, we're looking at the schedule. It's kind of been a hot topic for the last few weeks in that it's been released. We're going to see 10 stops on the Pro Tour. We're going to see the finale now of the championships for the Pro Tour taking place there. 6 stops on the National Tour again, so no expansion there. But it's going to be wrapping up at Music City, of course, that we know is kind of a newcomer to that large of a scale, being on the National Tour, wrapping up a few weeks earlier, and in your home state of all things. Have you put any thought or concern into next year's schedule? I know you just talked about where you may or may not go, but outside of that, have you put any thought or concern about, or do you just like, okay, well, it's an event. If it's close enough, I'll go. Is that pretty much how you look at it?
The bigger tournaments I went to this year, I'm more than likely going to go to next year. And also I'm going to try and get to a few more of the bigger ones, like Great Lakes Open. I want to try and get up there. I was really hoping, so the Throw Down the Mountain was a test event for the Pro Tour. I was really hoping that it was going to make it. And I mean, it may, but it didn't this coming year. So I was looking forward to that. I may still go down to that, maybe not, because that's early on in the year. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some bigger tournaments that I'm forgetting about that I'm going to try and go to, but there'll be some weekends throughout the year that are just like filler weekends. Some weekends you can either take off or find a tournament that's not very far away to go to. And more times than not, whenever I'm faced with that, I'm going to find one to go to, even if it's a B tier or maybe even if it's a C tier.
Sure.
Just because I don't really like sitting around and not doing much.
Well, you're leaving money out on the table, so to speak, for some of those events. I can understand how that can be really appealing to you. This is maybe a little bit of a weird question, but if I said to you, you have the option of putting the Charlotte course, where we just were at Hornets Nest, as a stop, as one of the 10 stops on the Pro Tour, or leaving it as the finale, would you have a preference, or would you be there regardless?
No preference, really. I'd be there either way.
Okay. Yeah, great addition. I know we already kind of talked about, comparing the two finales. New World served us well. Great people over there. Mm-hmm. Great course, different style. I think we're going to continue to see some big events from them. I know they have an A tier going on there in 2 weeks, still taking place. So they're going to still be welcoming and hosting big events, and we will continue to watch that. But also to know that we're locked in for 2 years in Charlotte seems pretty exciting as well. Johnny V now, I see off on the distance, has what looks to be some form of signature discs that are pulled up. Can you give us any kind of insight as to what you're throwing and what everybody should be out there buying to support you?
Well, real quick, let me add to that. I thought one of our viewers had said that you were throwing a new disc, an Ace, something from Ace Discs. Is that Is that right?
Yes. So I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about it, just because it hasn't really been announced over here.
We're all friends here.
I was going to say,
all friends here.
If you don't want to talk about it, I can say what I have heard about it, just breezing around on the internet. Maybe you can give a little wink or two. My understanding is Ace is kind of like a sub company of that Prodigy is manufacturing discs for, similar to the relationship that we've seen with like a Discmania and an Innova in the past.
An old school, okay.
Yeah, exactly. An old. So that, but you are allowed to throw this this new mystery disc. Is that clearly that's the case?
Yeah. Yep, that's the case.
Great. So a man of few words. We're trying to get even more out of him. Good.
I don't want to get the guy in trouble.
Well, I mean, if he's throwing frisbees, the world wants to know.
What kind of disc is it?
So it's a putter, and it's a straighter putter. It's very, very similar to an AVR, is how I can compare it. That would be the closest disc I could compare it to, just because it goes straight. It doesn't really want to turn left or right. And at the end, it doesn't want to fade out very much at all. It's almost like it just wants to fall to the ground, just straight, basically. And I'm not sure why we haven't had any kind of media for it over here yet, but what I've been told, the reason we can throw it is because it's approved, and we've sold enough in other places, just not in the United States.
All right. Well, so and to be fair, yeah, if you've been throwing it, clearly that means it's PDGA approved.
I hope so. Otherwise, you're gonna have some competitors that are gonna be upset.
And I'm gonna pick up a hint or two, because I know that Prodigy and some of the Prodigy owners and co-owners have been very active in working in the China market. So if he's suggesting that plenty have maybe been sold, but not necessarily here in the States, that we're seeing some of them either produced and or being sold in China.
Excellent.
There's a few people there. So if they're picking up and throwing discs around, that makes perfect sense. Okay. All right. That's what we like to call a Smashbox exclusive.
All right. So talk a little bit about your signature disc I'm looking at here. It's the H3V2 with the robot chicken. Is that right?
That's right. That's my most recent signature disc release. It's in the 750 plastic. It's also a glow disc. So I think that's the first signature disc that was available in glow plastic. So it's a little bit stiffer, champ kind of plastic, glow. And the H3V2 is a very straight flyer, being around a 9-speed. So even for slower arm speeds, it's pretty straight. I mean, being a 9-speed, it's going to have that fade at the end, but for the most part, it's a straight, faster fairway driver.
How many different molds, and I guess that's a follow-up to that, to your explanation there, how many different molds do you carry in your bag?
I would say 15-ish.
Wow. Different molds, not different actual discs.
Different.
Wow. Okay. That's somewhat surprising.
Different molds. And I'm going to have multiples of a few different ones, but I mean, I didn't go through and count them or anything, but just a rough estimate, probably around 15 different molds.
And if I'll back up and say why I'm surprised by that, you seem like a guy that's incredibly, and I don't want to just say robotic, but you're very diligent and you're very routine based,
Methodical.
That's another good word for it, and which just would lead me to think, like, if you told me, well, I have 3 molds in my bag, like, I wouldn't have been surprised by that. So I am a little surprised by you saying whether it's 10 or 12 or 15 or whatever the exact number is. I'm just a little bit surprised by that. Obviously, there's no value judgment. I'm just somewhat shocked by it.
So here's the reason that I do that I have that many different molds in my bag, and I think I carry anywhere between 32 to 36 discs at a time. That reason is whenever I go to a course, whether I played there before or not, I don't like to take disc out of my bag and put new disc in just to be specific to that course. So if I have all those discs that I need that cover the whole spectrum of shots that I think I could possibly need, I don't have to change my bag in and out, or I don't have to change discs in and out of my bag. I can just play with what I have, and very, very rarely will I have to put a new disc in for a specific shot.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. My only follow-up to that would be when you're out practicing a course, usually before an event, do you ever find yourself throwing a number of shots and then possibly just leaving one out there? I feel like that's how most of our top pros lose discs, is simply by leaving them because they've practiced. Do you ever find yourself doing that and trying to add up exactly how many discs you had along with you when you started?
Yes, I've definitely done that before. Normally, whenever somebody leaves a disc behind, well, at least for me, it's a new addition to the bag. So if I'm trying out a new disc, I'll throw it on a hole, and that one is more than likely the disc I'll leave behind, just because I can look at my bag and it always looks the same. So if I put a new disc in there, I'm not used to it. So whenever I look at it, may not notice it's even missing.
When is the last time you genuinely lost a disc? You threw it and it just flat out couldn't be found. And I'm not necessarily just talking about water, because you know where it is. You just can't get it. When's the last time you actually just lost a disc?
Last year, I was practicing for the Chain Hawk Open. I think I was either practicing before or after the tournament, but it was at one of the courses for the Chain Hawk Open. So I threw an F5 that I was very fond of. It's one of my favorite fairway drivers. It's a wooded part of the course, and if you're familiar with that part of Florida, they have these really big spiders. They call them banana spiders. I don't think that's what they actually are. That's just what they call them. But they are very big spiders. So I'm walking through the rough. I'm looking for my disc. It took a bad kick in the rough. I'm not seeing it. And I walk almost through this huge spider web, and this just huge spider is right at my face. So I do what most people do. I yell.
Be honest. Did you scream like a little girl?
Nope, didn't scream. It was lower pitched.
More of a yelp? Did it sound like your dog? More of a yelp, maybe?
Yep.
Okay.
That's more accurate. But I maybe looked for a couple of minutes after that, but I was more looking for spider webs that I wasn't going to walk through. So basically, I abandoned that disc just because I almost walked through the biggest spider web I've ever seen, along with the biggest spider.
Fair enough. And did it ever come home? Did anyone ever message you? Or I'm guessing unfortunately, you never got that one back.
Not a chance.
All right. Well, maybe this year when you're out practicing and you're in that general vicinity, you'll run into it.
It's been a long time since I've had a disc attempted to be returned to me.
Well, I mean, when you're a superstar, I mean, you got, to some degree, there's this really cool notion of like, oh my gosh, I really like that guy. I got to get this back to him. He'd love it. And then there's probably a little bit of, the other devil on the other, or the devil on the other shoulder saying, oh no, you should really keep that. He's really good. That'd be awesome to
You've got
hang
a
in
disc
your
with
room.
a signature on it.
Yeah. So you're in, when you're at the status you're at, sometimes you may not get the benefit of the doubt there. All right, Chris, is there anything that you want to share with us before we let you go here tonight?
Not that I can really think of. You all touched on the signature discs, and I mean, I could mention there's another one out there, the
Please.
300 PA3.
Okay.
That would be. Oh, actually, no. There is one. I got an email today from Savage Apparel. They are wanting to do I guess it's called a commemorative shirt for back-to-back Pro Tour champ. So I think they've already designed the shirt, and they're going to be advertising for it maybe starting tomorrow. If not tomorrow, pretty soon.
So did you have any input on the style, or did they kind of handle most of that? And can you fill us in if you've seen it, what it kind of looks like? Because Savage is known for their full color style jerseys and shirts and things like that.
I didn't really have too much input because I didn't know it was happening. They sent me a picture of what they had in mind, and actually I wouldn't change anything about it. It's a really good looking shirt. They talked to the Pro Tour and they asked them if they could use their the Pro Tour symbol and any of the likeness and stuff like that, and they said yes. So it's gonna be red, white, and blue, like the the Pro Tour colors, and beyond that, I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
But it's the only thing I know is that, and they're gonna start advertising pretty soon.
Well,
yeah, you don't need to know more. You just need to count up those dollar bills as they come flooding in.
That's great, because Savage is a supporter of the Pro Tour. Every event, I believe it's hole 7, is the Savage hole that has all their stuff on it. So it's really great to see them over the last year or two really come into the disc golf community and do things like this. So for everybody, please go ahead and go find that from Savage. I'm sure you can probably go to their website in the next day or two, and it should hopefully be there. And if you're following Chris on any sort of social media, I'm sure he will post about it.
Yeah. And I want to give an add to that shout out. Savage graciously stepped in right around the World Championships to give us a little boosted support, and they are as everyone has seen, they're getting more and more invested in disc golf. So to see them support the team with a number of your fellow teammates that we've seen out there, Chris, and then also having them support the media teams, including people like Jomez and us at the World Championships and so on. Huge shout out to Savage, and so that's great to see that they're doing something a little extra special for you. And what a bonus, truly, for them to say, oh, hey, you did this great thing. We want to recognize it, and we're going to further make an example of you and praise you for what you've done. I mean, what more could you ask for in a sponsor?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate them for doing that.
Awesome. All right, give us one final plug. Savage, of course, a gracious sponsor of yours. Go ahead, list any and all supporters or sponsors that you want to mention before we cut you loose here.
Prodigy Disc is the main one. They make basically everything possible for me to tour and all that stuff. Airborne, Kel LaVisca. He helps me out a good amount. He sends me a lot of clothes that are going to keep me warm through the winter. That is for sure, just because they deal with all the snow and everything up there that we don't really have to deal with as much. But it seems like whenever I get a little care package from him, it's always warm stuff, and that's great to have. I actually just got a sweater from him today with, I think it's the King of the North stamp on the front.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good looking sweater. I'm kind of upset I didn't wear it tonight because it's a little chilly outside.
Well, Kale's usually the King of the North himself, and that I know has won that event a few times. But awesome to hear Kale and Airborne, and then your amazing travel partner, life partner, and wife Brittany. I know she's always out there as your number one fan and supporter. It's awesome to see her and have her see her week in and week out as well. Anyone else?
Yeah. Nope, not really. I'm glad you brought that up because I was just about to. I'm glad she gets to tour with me more than she has before. She's made out to a few bigger events. Well, a couple years ago she made out to a few bigger events, but this year she's made it to the same amount as me. So, I mean, just having her there really, really helps me want to stay out on the road and not have to go home and stuff like that.
All right. Well, I'm going to hold her to last year at the South Florida Open. We talked about having some grilled chicken out of your camper. She said she was going to be cooking some up. So we'll make good on it this year over at the park or something. I'll eat chicken with you. I love it almost as much as you do, buddy.
That's good to hear.
All right, Chris, as always, thank you so much for joining us. Let's make it more frequent. You got 20 wins this year, so we don't have to wait for you just to win the Pro Tour championships. We'll find a way to have you on more frequently next year, and we're looking forward to seeing you over the next few months. I'm sure I'll be running into you, and looking forward to a great 2020.
That sounds good.
All right,
man.
we'll be listening for that contract update. You have a good one, buddy.
Yeah, make it rain. All right, good night, Chris. See ya.
Thank you. See y'all.
Bye.
See ya. All right, and of course, again, Chris Dickerson, not a man of many words, but he is so meticulous.
He's direct
when he's out there, and I know I said that him and Kelvin don't necessarily are very low key, which they are, but I've also heard their interactions between each other and in that tight circle that they have, and it's funny every single time, whatever they're talking about. If there should be a mic'd up just on those two when they're walking around during a course, because it's always funny and entertaining. So thank you so much to Chris for joining us. And wow, what an incredible weekend. And I know we've heavily harped on it, as we should have. The Pro Tour is now officially at a close. Charlotte being the gracious host, the National Tour is at a close, and now A tiers. There's a few dozen probably around the country over the next few weeks. B tiers, C tiers, glow tournaments, double tournaments, all those types of things start to creep into everyone else's schedule, or taking weekends off, watching football, carving pumpkins, raking leaves, whatever. It's officially on the downswing, which just feels really crazy to say.
This season in general it's been awesome, but it felt like it went really quickly, as they always feel like at the end of the year. And now we get into officially off-season talk. We get into contract negotiations. We get into re-signings. This week, we already have seen two, maybe even more, but two that I recall, signings. Kristen Tatar has re-upped with Latitude 64 for 3 additional years. And I believe Albert Tam did the same thing. I'm not 100% sure on the timetable for him, but I did hear he re-upped with his sponsor as well, which is Latitude. So they're both Latitude 64 sponsored players. I'm not sure about Albert's time frame, but I did see Kristen with 3 years. So we're already seeing contracts being negotiated and signed. There are, I think we're in for an interesting offseason, not nearly what we saw last year. I don't know if you'll ever top last year. Even when Macbeth's contract is over in another 3 years, I don't know if we'll be able to top what we saw. But this is when we get into the exciting stuff. We've got the tour already announced for next year, so that's kind of in our pocket.
Yep.
And we're just gonna now more or less kind of, it's a lot of behind the scenes stuff at this point.
Yeah, and so to quickly touch on the tours which have been announced also, and we talked briefly, I believe, about the quote-unquote Lloyd Wema rule last week, correct? As we were talking about one of the adjustments that's going to be made there. That's not as big a news, but it was one thing that was discussed, I know. But not only the tours and the players, but now we're starting to see A tiers and B tiers and other well-established tournaments are going to slowly quickly start jumping onto the calendar. And I'll say selfishly on my part, I'm already looking ahead to events that I got the pleasure of going to internationally in the last year. The Samui Swine, which is already on my radar and is a lock for me to be at next year in January and February. And I know there's an ever-growing crew that's talking about going over to Thailand, which is great. And then I see Tourney is locking into their position. That's the largest tournament in Europe participation-wise, so clearly that's a really big deal. I don't know if their data is 100% set, but I know they're working on it. And then another event that we just attended, the PCS Open. Again, I say C tier that had A tier NT payout and quality to it. So I'm getting excited about seeing some of the international events when they're hitting the schedules, along with what we're going to see for the A tiers. I feel like a few of the A tiers were recently released. And I know I wanted to touch on a point that Chris made earlier about the Throwdown the Mountain. I believe it's going to be in its 8th year this year. A tremendous event over at what they call the Grand Canyon course outside of Brooksville, Florida. Mike Barnett has done a phenomenal job, him and the whole crew down there. And last year it was considered a test event for the Disc Golf Pro Tour, where this year I believe it's being considered a Silver Series event, is I think the terminology that's being used. So we'll still have an affiliation with the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and points can still be earned for it. And I didn't want to interrupt Chris and make that distinction with him, but I think when he hears that may just further entice him if he was on the fence about going to play it. I think a lot of great players will be at the event, but to know that there is still a tie to the Pro Tour in an official capacity, I think will also then help it. And I think that's exactly how a number of other events are going to be handled. The Goat Hill event, I believe, is going to have a similar distinction to it. Possibly one of the events in Colorado may have that distinction to it. So I think that's what we're going to see as a number of these A tiers start getting solidified, is where they're aligning and how they fit onto the tour schedule. So pretty exciting to see that stuff go down as well.
Let's take a couple-minute break. We have a disc review from Disc Golf Nerd.
What?
Yeah, the Disc Mania Evolution Link putter. So he's going to kind of give us his input on that. We're going to listen to this. We'll be back in a few minutes with a little bit more info before we get into our after show.
What's up, Smashies? I'm back, and this month we're taking a look at the Discmania Link. This one is in the Evolution line, which is manufactured by Latitude 64 in Sweden. So this one, being in the Exo Soft plastic from Discmania, is roughly equivalent to the Zero Medium plastic from Latitude 64. It's extremely grippy, it's comfortable in the hand, it has a lot of give and flexibility to it, but it's firm enough that it's still pretty consistent with how it releases from your hand. I really love the feel of this disc. It has a perfectly flat top, an extremely rounded outer edge, has the bead there, it feels great coming out of the hand, and I just really dig the design overall. It's pretty similar to something like a Judge from Dynamic Discs, also not terribly dissimilar to a JK Aviar from Innova. Definitely has that straight to neutral beaded putter type flight to it. Inside the circle, I think it's better suited to like a spin putt or somebody who putts a little bit more firm than I do. But putting is such an individual thing that I only tested it for that so much. I mostly focused on how it flies off the tee and on approaches, and for that I absolutely fell in love with this disc. It went straight in my bag basically after the first round I played with it, because it holds any release angle perfectly throughout the flight. It'll hold a smooth hyzer, I can throw it flat and straight all the way, it'll hold a turnover start to finish, and every little nuance in between. So this is a great disc. It's absolutely point and shoot for me, and it just worked out really well. I felt like I knew exactly how to throw it because all I had to do was give it the angle I wanted it to fly on, and it just held that throughout the flight. I also think that a neutral throwing putter like this is a very effective tool to evaluate your form. If you're having some issues with your throw, getting yourself a few of these kind of perfectly neutral point and shoot putters and getting out and playing some rounds with them will definitely give you a good idea of how your form is overall, because it should just take that angle and fly exactly how you throw it. So it'll really show you what you're doing with your throw. All in all, I think the Discmania Link is an absolute winner, one of my favorite discs of the year. Thank you so much for listening. That's it for this month. Big thank you to Smashbox for having me be a part of the show. If you guys would like to see the full review of this disc, over 200 others, plus tips and information, disc dying videos, and whatever else I feel like posting that day, just search for Disc Golf Nerd on YouTube, and you can also find me at Disc Golf Nerd 1 on Instagram. Thank you so much. I'll check you later. Cheers.
Thanks a lot to the Disc Golf Nerd for that. Like he said, go check out his Facebook page, or his YouTube page. I'm sure he's got a Facebook page too, but go check out his YouTube page for the full disc reviews. He does giveaways and all that wonderful stuff. So as always, we appreciate Disc Golf Nerd's continued input and continued help with the show. Those are always well done, because Terry and I we're not good, so we can't do that stuff.
I want to get in, maybe not. I was going to say, I want to get into reviewing something. Probably not.
No, you're not. No.
I will say I've also noticed, although I do not consume really too much content on YouTube by any of the channels, no slight or disrespect to anyone, but what I have noticed is I feel like Disc Golf Nerd is putting up more and more content more and more frequently. So please go check it all out and see what he's providing, and consume it all, because it seems like he's gotten into a much more frequent update and release schedule, which is awesome to see, to be posting with more and more consistency. And I'm going to take a quick break to give a special shout out, both from the SmashBoxxTV and from the Disc Golf Guy Patreon accounts. I've gotten a few subscribers lately. I know SmashBoxxTV has also gotten a few subscribers. I had the pleasure of meeting Ron Harkey this weekend, who was out there. I think I got a picture with him and a few other Smashies. There was a couple of people that were wearing the special T-shirt, the SmashBox exclusive Patreon shirts. I know someone was in the background of a photo or two that I got, which is when I did notice it. I did not get a chance to say hello. I gave out a couple of hugs. So
I'm sorry for all those people.
So I do want to say, just again, thank you to all of the SmashBoxxTV Patreon subscribers. In addition to all of my Disc Golf Guy Patreon subscribers, we say it all the time. We love all of our Patreon subscribers more than other humans. Yep. They're our favorites.
And if we're going to give out shout outs real quick, I do want to give a shout out. I did it on Facebook, but to all the people that made this weekend possible, go to our Facebook, but especially the cameramen, the guys from Gatekeeper just knocked it out of the park. They'd never done live before, and they were thrown into a new situation of which they hadn't before, and doing live is always just a little different than doing post-production, and they killed it, man. Much appreciated to those guys, and of course
Chris
to all
and Derek, thank you.
Yes,
thank you guys over at Gatekeeper.
Much appreciated to the people who helped us, and of course Joey and Todd as well. But we get to say that to those guys all the time. But the guys from Gatekeeper, man, go out and take a look at their stuff, because honestly, they are right up there with the other crews that we mention in almost every aspect. So please go give them a listen and a watch.
Yeah, we really do appreciate what they did. It was and I'll give Johnny V also the pat on the back. It's been a challenging year in the sense that for 3 or 4 years we've been a relatively consistent crew with the exact cameramen we've had, along with Johnny filling a role and myself filling a role or a variation of that role. And this year, with everything that unfolded with the Pro Tour, not only us originally not being involved, but then asked to come back, but then to have kind of a mix mash of different scenarios and literally having a different crew almost every single weekend, that there was very little consistency from crew member to crew member. We had a few, of course, that were with us, but it added just an entire extra 10 layers of challenge that hopefully moving forward, we're not going to necessarily be faced with that. So Johnny V's pat on the back.
Oh.
Because, again, every weekend, so as much as we can thank all the camera men and women and operators and people that got thrown into the mix, Johnny V also, it was almost a new training process all too often. And hopefully moving forward, we'll have more consistency in those regards.
Nothing will beat the memorial. Like, that week was insane, being handed more or less 4 guys who had never filmed disc golf before or had very minimal experience, and none of them had any live experience, and being told, this is your crew, go knock it out of the park. I brought it on myself because I agreed to it, but ultimately that was an interesting week, and this whole year in general with the Pro Tour has been interesting, and I'm excited for 2020. I'm excited to see where everything goes. I know we'll have all sorts of communication with different media crews and Jeff Spring and everything. I'm really happy with where disc golf is right now.
And it's only going to get more wild and more crazy as we continue to hopefully thrive and grow and things continue to head in what we feel like is the right direction. So I think we can call the regular show. In the after show, as always, we'll talk about some random stuff that may or may not be disc golf related. There may be a rant, a soapbox, an all-out complaint fest, or not. Or it could be a whole...
I was going to say, do you have some?
No.
I can talk.
No, there could be an accolade fest, which I don't think is a thing.
It should be.
It should be. That's what we need more of. I mean, I can talk trash about being not impressed on American Airlines and how they're no Southwest, but I won't. But we do invite you to join us for the after show. Like I said, some of that madness will ensue. And we're going to have another MVP giveaway, not a basket like they gave us a few weeks ago as part of their generous sponsorship. But we do have a Tear Bear MVP disc that will be given away to a lucky Patreon subscriber here tonight. And I want to thank them for supporting us the way that they have as well. So for Dynamite, joining us early on in the show, for Chris Dickerson, your Pro Tour MPO Championships finale champion again, for Johnny V, along with the Disc Golf Nerd for his great review and input, I'm Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy. We'll see you in the after show when you step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the SmashBoxxTV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Smashbox TV Podcast 270 After Show. You'd think there'd be a way to abbreviate that a little. We're 270 in.
Find a way to
The SmashBoxxTV podcast after show.
the Smashter show.
Master show?
No.
I mean, we always say no one cares about the Masters division, but now that we're Masters, we should start caring about our
No,
division.
I've said that even I don't care about our division. I hardly care when I'm playing in the division, much less.
Speaking of which, there's a segue unintended. Are you going to compete this weekend at the Wisconsin Tour finale held in northeastern Wisconsin?
No.
Why not?
I debated it. There is currently 60 spots available, I believe, in the.
Mhm.
It is up in Door County, where where my in-laws are. I would have a free place to stay.
Disc Golf Rich.
Disc Golf Rich. I looked at the division I would sign up for. There's currently, I believe, only 4 other players.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, that's a 2.5-hour drive. I would have to I could bring my daughter up there. You know, my son's got a soccer meet this week, so I could bring my daughter up there. She could spend time with the in-laws. I talked to a couple of our other friends who normally do the tour, and they are not going up.
Wow.
So,
Why not?
Life stuff going on.
Dude, disc golf is life.
Disc golf is
Dynamic
life.
disc commercials tell me that.
So I would be going up all by myself, and that doesn't.
So with your friends.
Yeah, with all my friends. That doesn't necessarily interest me as much. It is something I did express interest in. Had I got, I reached out to you because I forgot that this weekend you are actually busy, and then I reached out to our friend Steve, who attends all the tour events but is not hitting the finale. Instead, he's got like sweet tickets to a Bucks game.
Mm.
So, had either of you said yes, I probably would have made a point to go up there, and we would have had a free place to stay and this and that. But because neither of you are going, I don't feel like making the trip more or less all by myself. So I've decided that I am not going to attend the tour finale, which stinks because I heard the course is nice. It's up in Egg Harbor, Wisconsin, which is in the way up in the thumb of Wisconsin.
Mhm.
It's beautiful this time of year with being fall. It's lots of fests up there, the Fall Fest. It's a lot like the way people treat Vermont, where you go there in the fall to see the colors.
Mhm.
That's the way Door County is as well. It's absolutely gorgeous.
It is. And Door County, though, prides itself in what? Wine?
They recently have been doing a lot more wine, but really their big claim to fame is cherries.
Cherries and cranberries?
No, cranberries would be more in the central Wisconsin area.
You sure about that?
I am very sure.
I could have swore Door County was like the #1
Nope.
cranberry producer
You're absolutely
in the country.
wrong. You are 100%
Okay.
wrong. It is cherries. Door County cherries are the
Okay, that would make sense as well. I mean, really, how different are they?
Cranberries is actually near Sparta. That's
Over on the kind of Midwest part
correct.
of the state. Huh. All right, I'm going to do a little research.
You do a little bit of research.
I just thought, again, I don't have in-laws that are up there, so that is something that you should know.
It's door, Door, as in the door on your house.
Yes. I don't have time to do the Googles, but I'll have to believe you. I know cherries are definitely big up there. I thought cranberries was maybe if it's cranberries out of the Sparta area, then is it not like one of the largest producers of?
It is. They do
like
a
the
lot
entire country
for ocean spray and all of those. I'm trying to think. We drive through it over there. It's clearly not Watoma, but it starts with a W, and I can't. If someone could help me out on the board.
Winona?
Nope.
A part of the state you're talking about?
Correct. There's a city that you drive on the way to like La Crosse. It starts with like a fairly certain.
Starts with like a W.
It starts with a W. I'm fairly certain.
You're not thinking of Portage.
I'm not thinking of Portage.
That's not a W. Okay.
Toma. I'm sorry, not a W. You're right. It is
Okay.
Toma, Wisconsin. Toma is like the home of all the cranberries.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Toma,
well,
Wisconsin, Cranberry Fest, all that fun stuff. That is where it is. Thank you very much. Wabishka Wagosh.
okay. We'll go with that. All right. Well, there's your Wisconsin history and facts
Manitowoc
there.
Minute.
Yeah, with Charlie Barons. There's all the Wisconsin you need up in there. Speaking of Wisconsin, now we were playing, and we'll quickly touch on this because I don't really know what I'm talking about.
Usually
but that
don't.
doesn't stop me normally.
Nothing does.
Apparently, that Rogers fella, he had himself a good day on Sunday. Perfect QB rating. While we were out there covering the disc golfs.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch a single snap of the game, but he had like 5 touchdowns. He ran one in. I think he was like
completed like 25 of 31.
Something along those lines, and just had like 500 yards.
Yeah,
it was
or something. Yeah,
pretty amazing.
And apparently, I think did I hear it was only the second time in history?
I think for Packers.
Oh, for Packers, okay. That there was a perfect quarterback rating.
Yeah, there's been quite a few perfect quarterback ratings, I believe.
Nonetheless, so if you're at all into that, and then I was out and about and taking in some of the action in Charlotte. We also saw
Warren.
I
think that's the city in Wisconsin I was actually thinking of.
Houston,
yes.
Moving into the. There you go.
Thank you, Warren Cranberry Fest. I knew it was a W. It's right next to Toma, but Toma is the other city I was thinking of. I went on a date from a girl from Toma, and we talked all about it on that date. So that's all I think about when I think of Cranberry Fest. Like, I think it brings me back to that city, which she was from, Warren, and it brings me back to that particular date.
From 25 years ago.
Oh, yeah. When was the 20th year of the Kansas City Wide Open? 20 years ago? Is this the 42nd?
I don't know if we're... maybe.
I think we might be in the 41st or 42nd, because that was the year.
You've been with that wife lady of yours for...
a long time.
A long time.
A long time.
So the date was probably before her.
Maybe. I'm not going to say. I'm just kidding. Of course.
All right. Okay. Randomness. I'm going to give a quick shout out. This is probably pretty specific, yet a little bit random, and I'm okay with that. I, on Saturday night, had the pleasure of going to some improv in the music district, or whatever it's called, down there in Charlotte. It actually wasn't far from where our Airbnb was. And it was really crappy out Saturday night, which kind of sucked. The rain put a damper on everything. I don't know if it started at 5 or 6 or 7 o'clock, but it rained for a good 10 or 12 straight hours. But I did go out, found improv. The group that I saw, I think ensemble's the official term, or the group. They go by The Last Blockbuster, as in the movie rental place. This group of 8 or 10 or so that performed. They went for almost a full 90 minutes. Like a lot of improv, incredibly inexpensive. It was just $10 for the ticket. And if you ever get a chance to see them perform, wherever it might be, I would highly recommend them. Very talented group and a lot of fun. So I enjoyed taking that in on Saturday night down there in the Charlotte area. I know we kind of beat it to death, but I do want to say that Charlotte was awesome to be at, excited. One of the things that they did mention a number of times is this championship was granted or determined literally a month and a half, maybe 2 months at most, before we actually went there. And they put on a hell of a show. They did great. Their club, everyone stepped up. We said all of that in the regular show. But what they also said is they're already excited and planning for next year. And so to go to a place that is such a mecca of disc golf, but then to have them fully embrace the Disc Golf Pro Tour and have them fully embrace disc golf the way that they do, makes it that much more exciting. To be capping off the season in a location like that, and this is no I don't want to say shade. This is of no slight at all to the previous places we've been. Those have also been great. But Charlotte has proven themselves to be this disc golf city, and let's just say there's a lot of people that are really excited already about the return. So the volunteerism, the support, the coursework that they did, all of those things certainly noticed. Now, one tiny thing I want to talk about, though, is that I believe, and I would love to be corrected if I am incorrect, I believe they just installed the brand new tee pads on holes 13 and 18. And I think they did some other ones. But specifically, I'm thinking of 13, which was deemed a par 5 to the elevated basket, and then 18. And they actually were almost adjacent to one another, going in opposite directions. During the final round is when I noticed.
Well, 13 seemed to be slick.
Well, 18, and that was going to be my point. 18 certainly was, in the sense that that's where we saw Sarah Hokum put down a beach towel, and then Paige Pierce asked if she could use it as well.
Was that on 18?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm
That was
thinking, because
18.
I was thinking, maybe I was
Yeah.
thinking 13, but yeah.
Those are the two. Those two tees are again adjacent to one another, almost in parallel sense, going opposite ways. My question is, one, maybe someone can tell me, are those in fact brand new, as in were those just put in the last few weeks, or maybe they're older? But two, are those the right teeing surface? They look amazing. I think they're really difficult to put in correctly, to put them in a correct fashion or manner. I can imagine. I've seen them at Maple Hill at one point. Are those the right teeing surface?
I have zero input in this because
You didn't throw from them?
I didn't throw
you
from
slip
them.
a lot. And you need a big run up.
Yeah.
So
I've got really long
I don't
legs,
think you would.
and
I don't think
I've
you
got
would maybe like
relatively poor footwork. So so yeah, I mean, ultimately, it. I'm not usually the person that's going to give a good opinion on a slick tee surface. So I'm stepping back from this particular subject.
Okay. Well, I would love if there's anyone out there from the Charlotte area, and my real point to this is anywhere and everywhere. Are the paver brick style tee pads as beautiful as I think they look? Because I do think they're almost like a work of art out there. I just don't see them providing the right traction for our players time and time again. And there's courses in Wisconsin that have them. There's other places that have done them. I feel like they have just this beautiful aesthetic look to them, but I'm not sure that they're practical in terms of having the right grip that we need.
It clearly depends on the pavers. I'm sure there are different styles, different grits, and whatever that may be. So I would hate to make a blanket statement about one particular style over another, because the ones that I recall that I think of when I think of pavers in Wisconsin is at Roland Ridge. They have a hole where they have pavers on 13 or 14. It's that whole deck
With the
that's
deck.
built up.
Sure.
And I've never had a problem on it.
Sure. And those are definitely a different style in that those are almost like either a 12 or an 18-inch by 18-inch square. I mean, they're very large tile-like, as opposed to, a slightly smaller like brick.
Yeah, so it's again hard for me to say without being there and without seeing it.
Mhm.
I don't know if anything can be done. I don't know what the result is, but ultimately, sorry.
And I'll say I think of a course in Wisconsin near Green Bay that put those in 20 years ago as well. They were in, and I feel like they were in less than a year or two, and they were done differently, but they were buckling and very much came up, and I believe the traction on them was not good.
That's an issue in Wisconsin in general because of the way our land freezes and thaws. You're going to have less of that in Charlotte. They might
Sure.
not get a freeze the entire year. They might get one or two, but they're not going to see most of that. As someone on the board here says that they're horrible when wet, but if they're dry, they're great.
Sure.
So the way it rained off and on overnight, at times and during the day a little bit, I can understand how that would be an issue.
Yeah. Something to think about. Wanted to throw it out there. I know one of the other conversations that came up during the PDGA Summit, to bring this kind of full circle, is they were talking about NTs and majors events not having earthen, was the phrase, earthen tee pads.
Earthen as in
Basically
Fake.
dirt or grass.
Oh, that they should not have
That they
those.
cannot be earthen tee pads. And that was loosely defined as you really shouldn't have any grass and or dirt, or even just straight wood chip, which I think makes perfect sense because that still allows for rubber.
Can you have it
and
on
turf
on the side though? To say we have seen that where
at the memorial.
Here's the tee pad, but you are allowed to tee from the side of this tee pad, for whatever reason. We saw it at Ledgestone. We've seen it at other places where it's like, here's your designated tee pad, but you've got this extra on each side. Is that allowed?
I think that's something that I know that was asked during the PDGA summit, and I believe the response was that it could still be offered as an option,
but
it shouldn't be your only option. Correct. So when you think about the memorial as the most frequent place that we typically see it, you're out there at the memorial, and on a number of the holes at Vista del Camino specifically, they have a very large tee pad that they provide, and then may give you anywhere from 1 to 3 feet off to the sides of the tees, and that's still designated as an area that you can tee from if you choose. So they're providing a concrete option, but they're saying that you could. Now, I think that could still be offered, but they're saying there must be.
How would you feel if maybe it became a standard that every event said that gave you a foot or 2 feet on each side of every tee pad that says you can tee from?
I would hate that.
Why? Like, because for some, let's just saying in this hypothetical, someone says, I don't like teeing from concrete. It's hard on my knees. It's bad on this. I would rather tee from a softer surface because I have my cleats or I have these specific shoes. So giving everybody an option to say you can tee from a specific side or either side to not give anybody a particular advantage. And that can completely change a hole.
Yeah. It can change the hole.
To negate that particular argument.
Two, I think you would have to then define every single hole's tee extension. So someone that walks up and says, you can have 2 feet left or right of the tee.
On the
my 2 feet might look very different from your 2 feet. And then who's calling who?
It shouldn't. But B, we look at a little over a foot every time someone plants a toe.
I know.
And so if we're willing to make those kind of judgment calls, I don't see a reason why you couldn't particularly say, and I'm not vying for this in general, it's just a thought that came to my head, that would say, oh, everyone gets 2 feet on the side of the tee pad to tee from, if you so choose that.
And then lastly, what I would say why I wouldn't be a fan of that by default is also that would then potentially increase the erosion that's going to take place around every single hole. Where people are using it, of course. It's going to enhance or increase the erosion potential and or detriment, because then what I feel like could happen is that area is going to start to wear out, and then somebody's going to say, well, I want to throw from grass, but I don't want to throw from the 2 feet of mud pit that's right next to the tee. Can we just extend this another 2 feet? Like, at that point, you could say, well, where does it stop? And it might take 5 years to get to that, but pretty soon you're going to have just a big muddy area all around the one cement tee pad.
That is the most valid argument, I think, against something like that. And I completely agree. It just, but then again, if you're saying something like this for national tours or pro tour events specifically, or let's just say, even if it was for all PDGA events, I mean, tournaments are run at a particular course usually once a year, maybe twice a year for most courses. We'll see it 1 or 2 tournaments. So if if you're not doing it for league, if you're not doing it on your regular tees,
that almost sounds silly then.
I mean, we have
like, hey, you guys come out here and play 51 weeks out of the year, but this week you get an extra 2 feet on this tee pad.
I mean, we have rules that only apply to national tours and pro tours in general. So just a thought that popped into my head.
Matthew asks on the board, will they get to a standardized tee pads?
No.
No, right after we get to standardized baskets. And I don't mean that to be too cocky, so to speak. It's just, I think there are going to continue to be guidelines and some restrictions, some that are really firm and some that are loose, some that are regulated, some that aren't. Right now we have suggestions and guidelines for what should be seen at every tier of event. hopefully those are being followed. There's some that are flat out requirements, but when we have so many different courses, municipalities, resources, it's tough to have a single standard all across the board. Now, look at the Pro Tour when they said, okay, we're going to only play on these 4 baskets that have been approved.
How'd that
Like
work?
that's something that I think is a little bit closer to what you're trying to arrive at. Or I think it would be great if the Pro Tour or the National Tour said, all right, at every one of these 10 stops, you're going to have this same turf tee area and like an AstroTurf of sorts.
I wonder if you could install the turf over the concrete temporarily.
I'm sure you could. And I'm sure if we had Dana on, he would try and sell us on just that.
I'm just curious how that would work. If you could say, I know MVP has a rollout turf for, I believe, I don't know if it's a temporary course thing or if it or what exactly the selling point is on that, or if it's that just installation that way. But if you can easily just roll that over a T-pad and say, hey, we have 18 of these that travel, we're going to roll them out and use them over the concrete T-pads. Because I think one of the big arguments of concrete is that it can wear down and it's hard on your knees. These turf is supposed to be better for your knees and whatnot. So I don't know. But then you'd have to find a way to secure it down so it's not sliding. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a question as we move forward. And I think maybe it was Paul McBeth or an Eric Oakley, someone at the summit had even said, like, what other professional sport is played on concrete? And I thought that was actually a really insightful comment. You know, that you are on, as opposed to, say, racing, in a vehicle or riding a bike, which has another, surface between you and. There's really not. I mean, there's different surfaces and clays and such that you find obviously on a tennis court, and then there's a basketball court, which
is not professionally played on concrete. But it is very
well. When I go street balling,
there you go. You're
and
one.
I'm in the D League. I don't even know what any of that means, but yeah, right. That's actually a really good point. Is what is played, what professional sports are played. Maybe somebody has some great input out there, but yeah, we've got clay, various types of grass.
Concrete, clay, grass, and concrete. I thought
they played concrete on tennis. Okay. I mean, when I'm handballing in New York City, like I've watched others do, I mean, that's concrete, but is it really actual concrete with nothing on top of it? I would be willing to bet that's not the case.
A hard court is considered, that's what you find at most local schools, sports centers, and tennis clubs, made up of a hard base substance such as concrete or asphalt, which is then covered in an acrylic surface layer. Each hard court can vary massively depending on the various materials used. Then you obviously have your clay courts and your grass courts or synthetic turf court. I don't know if I'm sure there are obviously tennis tournaments that are competed on concrete and that, but I don't believe any of the majors are.
Yeah, even track and field.
Yeah, track and field is all concrete.
That's concrete though, but like again,
it depends on the track. Some of them are, some of them aren't. Depends on how new. But
I think we need Disc Golf Strong here to answer some questions.
Yeah, NASCAR is completed on asphalt. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I think there's some rubber. That's
skateboarding. Someone brings up.
Okay, but again, you're not in direct.
Depends how good you are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, direct contact surface. You still have that barrier or two, maybe.
I mean, everybody wears shoes, so you've still got a rubber sole underneath. That's you're not direct contact. But I understand the concept in that it is harder and harsher on the joints.
I think if we played football on concrete, that would be great. No?
I doubt it.
Well, it wouldn't matter to us.
Well, no, it wouldn't.
Anyway. All right. So I don't know where in the world we got off on that subject, but me talking about the tees on those 2 holes. I don't know if they were slick all weekend. I don't know if that was just a situation, but call it a pro move by Sarah that she decided that she didn't like the grip that she found on that tee. She had purposely, that towel looked as if it was purposely tee pad sized in the sense that that's why she had it along. That's not a towel that she, went swimming with later. That was there for that reason. And then when Paige walked up, she kind of tested it herself, and then she said, hey, do you mind if I use that? And what I would consider great sportsmanship, Sarah said, yeah, of course, you can use my towel as well. So little takeaway there, a little pro tip from the beach towel.
Usually, I will have a spare. I usually carry a bunch of towels with me if it's going to be a little slick or wet, and sometimes I will use one of them for grip at the end of a tee pad. The difference is I don't usually have the giant beach towel. Mine are more along the size of like a medium hand towel, so you need to focus a little bit more on your step. What I did find interesting was that the way Sarah Hokum laid out her towel, she laid it along the length of the tee pad as opposed to what I would have thought is laid it perpendicular at the end of the tee pad to give myself that final footing, a bigger spot to hit, so I would have to think less about like, well, this is where I'm going to hit. But she knows what she's doing. She's a professional. I just found it interesting. I was like, oh, I would have personally done it the other way. But
well, now I'll counter that with just one side thought, which is the way that she runs up, throwing a forehand, certainly different than what you or I would be concerned with if we're running up, throwing it with a backhand. Mm-hmm. So maybe that was some of her thought process. But and Matthew asked if that gives her an advantage. Advantage over whom? I mean, somebody else, like let's just say a Katrina or a Rebecca, might have been wearing a particular style or shoe that she had absolutely no problems with whatsoever in terms of the grip, and Sarah was concerned about her grip. So whether or not you'd consider it an advantage, I'm not sure, but it is specifically laid out in the rules talking about when you can use something of that nature.
You can use it whenever you want.
Well, I think the argument many, many years ago, before there was more of a distinction within our rules, was talking about at what point are you, quote unquote, building your lie? Could you show up with a stack of pillows and say, I'm going to run across this stack of pillows, or those are all types of things that are actually explained within the rules. All right, I'm going to read a few notes off the board here real quick that I see. A towel is something I always forget, end up with a bunch of dirt and mud on my shirt with nothing to wipe my disc. I think a towel that should be a staple
in your bag.
Just because you not only have the obvious rain and such, or throwing it in a drink and needing to wipe it off, but there's just so often that you need it.
A clean towel in your bag usually is key. You should have, I think we talked about this years ago, like a checklist of things that are in your bag. A gallon Ziploc bag with 2 towels in it. And those towels can be relatively small. They could be hand towels for all you care. But just to have them with you and put them in a Ziploc bag so that A, they're always fresh, that they're not getting dusty and dirty in your bag. And in case you do get caught in the rain, then you have a place to store them and a place to dry. You're just like, I see my empty Ziploc bag over there right next to my bag. That is large enough to fold up like a medium-sized hotel towel, which, I'm not going to lie, we were guilty of taking a few back in our day. He's lying.
They all have my name on. I only took the ones that have my name. It's a Terry towel.
So we don't do that anymore. We were young and dumb. But yes, so I would be able to fit two of those towels in a particular bag. So just having a large Ziploc bag in your bag or cart is always really useful. And try to keep it clean, because you don't usually want to use the same towel that you've just one round wiped mud off, and the next round is 95 degrees, and rather than wiping the sweat off with your shirt, you're using a nasty old towel. So try to swap those out every once in a while.
Trevor Hook on the board is asking if Mach 2s are better than Mach 3s. You have input on that, Johnny?
I don't. There was a complaint because there was Mach 3s this weekend. Is that right? On the course at Charlotte?
No.
What was at the course in Charlotte?
Those were Chain Stars. Those must have been Chain Star 28s.
Is it?
Because it had the big band around it.
Oh, God, yeah, it had the band. Duh. Someone was complaining about Mach 3s yesterday or today on one of the boards. I was talking about how they spit through a lot of putts. And I said, well, I have a fondness for Mach 3s because that's kind of what I grew up playing on. Most of the courses that we had around had some sort of Mach 3 on them, or like a modified Mach 1 maybe. But and I just said, you have to putt differently. Like, you can't jam your putt into a basket. You have to have a little bit of grace and finesse.
Uh-oh. Johnny's gonna bark on something. Very graceful and
Thank you. I had to cough, so I was looking for my cough button. Forgot that I moved it over there. So I honestly think that yes, the Mach 3s compared to the baskets we have now, which have way more chains and are connected, don't have the ring inside that would just, shoot your putter back out on occasion. The newer baskets are probably better, but I do have an affinity for the Mach 3s, and I feel that you had to have a little bit more touch with your putt than what we see now. There's no way Ricky Wysocki would have his putting statistics on Mach 3s the way that guy is so forceful and direct with his putts.
I do like how flat his usually are.
Oh,
though.
they are.
I mean, they got the
super
nose down, so I don't know how much he would be impacted as opposed to some of our other players
With
that I feel like have a little bit more of a hyzer to come through them.
Yeah, those Mach 3s, there's a gentleman who used to play with us quite a bit, way long back in the day. His name was Sleepy, and he always had this almost a double G style hyzer putt. And I would watch him cut through chains or just come in and bounce out and never once catch anything when you would hit it where I would hit the exact same spot with a more flat putt and stick every time. You'd watch him slice right through Mach 3s.
I don't know.
It's all putting style. I mean,
yeah, I think there's some style, and I personally, I am okay with different baskets on from course to course to course. I don't want to see different baskets on the same course, but I've always been okay with that. I know I may be in the minority in saying so. I do want to quickly speak of, we saw a little bit of content produced by our friends over at UDisc. I believe they're running a contest and a commercial.
Contest?
Yeah, I think all you have to do is sign up. Well, they released a commercial yesterday talking about one of their features. Today, there was a new one released, and I think they're poking fun at me. Okay, maybe not, but I got my, I know I'm disc golf famous when I get UDisc Yenny to shout me out. They're telling everyone that they're going to be putting more content on their YouTube page and that people should go check it out. All you have to do is subscribe and then use a hashtag, and then you can find it. But I noticed a little disc golf comedy influence. Tyler over there working with UDisc, and they have a new commercial. Johnny's, yeah, you've got it that I'm hearing it.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. Okay. We've saw 2 of these Yeti commercials this weekend.
Okay.
They were put on the jump putt and the course. I'm sorry, not the course, but the rule book.
Okay, those I have not seen myself. So the new one that they must have released today is the 5,000 sub giveaway.
Yes.
That's the one that I have seen going around Facebook as well. So
I have not seen.
Great
that.
to see. Yeah. I love what they're doing.
And you got
course,
shouted out in the 5,000 sub one?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm gonna have to watch that later.
It's just hilarious.
And these are all created with the help of
Disc golf comedy.
Disc Golf Comedy.
You can sense a little of that influence. And then when a number of the responses come from Tyler or Disc Golf Comedy on the post that's being made, it helps for a dead giveaway. But no, they're really good. Go out. We preach about UDisc all the time. Of course, we want you to go out and support them. And if you are a PDGA member, you are then getting a UDisc Pro subscription. Speaking of PDGA memberships, quick plug, anytime you sign up after October 1st, that usually makes you good for the remainder of the year that you're in, and then makes you a current member for all of the following season. So we're in that time frame. I have to assume that nothing's changed in that front. So if you sign up now for the PDGA, that will keep you good through all of the next year, which is great to see. I had another comment about next year. Oh, cold turkey. Some of you have asked. We are going to have 72 participants eligible. RPM Disc is going to be working with me to produce the Cold Turkey 14. That's a C tier. It, cleverly enough, is in its 14th year this year. It takes place 2 days after Thanksgiving in a southeastern Wisconsin course that's just north of the Illinois border. Registration will open for that either on Wednesday or Thursday. And I want to give a quick shout out to RPM Disc, who very aggressively wanted to make sure they were part of that event, and I'm more than happy to do so. So thank you to RPM Disc out of New Zealand. Everybody's going to be getting some RPM plastic, which is awesome.
There was a video that was dropped. Brody Smith versus Ben Askren, so called Bro versus Pro. I have not had a chance to watch it yet. I think it literally dropped tonight at some point. So go out and check that out. I believe it is on Brody Smith's YouTube page. Brody Smith 21 is his YouTube page. So go check that out. I know I will be probably doing that after the show.
And Ben Askren, of course, from the UFC, he's very active on social media. He's a solid Twitter trash talker for sure. That's his number one outlet. But he's also been doing a lot of vlogs and putting out other content. And so if you want to follow along with what he's got going on, of course, UFC being kind of the single theme push throughout, but a lot of other content that he's given you as well while he's doing it.
Let's look at doing some giveaways, Terry Miller.
All right, I like it. I'm going to reach over. Maybe.
We did not give anything away last week because you weren't here, so we are going to be giving two things away this week. I have everything all lined up in my spreadsheet, including the people who signed up tonight at SmashBoxxTV/weekly giveaways.
All right, so either these or something a lot like these, thanks to MVP. And by the way, I'm also going to be releasing another video that explicitly is nothing but giveaways. I think I'm giving away 7 discs. I did 6 or 7 videos for the Hall of Fame Classic. MVP supported those. Sarah Holcomb went on to win. I mean, what more could you ask for? So either these or something just like these. We've got some of these MVP discs that we'll be giving away. They have my Tear Bear stamp on them. Again, I've got some Matrix, I have some Envies, and I have some Octanes. If you win, let me know if you have a strong preference. Otherwise, you may just get surprised. But these or something like these will be arriving and being given to you. We also gave away that basket 2 weeks ago. I did not reach out to that gentleman since then, but I assume that he's already received it. I know I sent the email to MVP, and they like the next day, they're like, yeah, we're on it. We're already getting that drop shipped. So it pays to listen, pays to be involved or something, pays to be a Patreon member. So thank you guys so much for all of your support. So we got some giveaways. We didn't do one last week when I was on the road.
No, I decided not to.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I guess we see who all the shots around here.
Well, I click the buttons. I call the shots.
Wow. I'm going to click some buttons.
No, you're not. I wouldn't let you, and you wouldn't know what to do.
Someday I'll figure it out just so I can break it. Like, what's this do? Click.
Like, oh, that's the delete.
All right, let's give something away from last week. Again, MVP disc. Thank you so much, MVP.
So we have 213 people in our list. If you would like to be eligible for our weekly giveaway, you know the deal. Patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV, or find our little thing out on the website. Shout out to Tony Boyko, who's migrating our website, and I'm already working with another company to design a new website. But patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV, for as little as $1 a month, you can be on this list to be eligible for our weekly giveaways, or bi-weekly, depending on what we decide. But we always give away something away for every week. So
there's at least
one a week, or the volume
per average, yes.
On average. Anyway, tonight, our MVP, we have 213 people eligible for our giveaways. I am going to look at this real quick just to make sure I have everything set the way I need to, which I believe I do.
Wow, well, Johnny's clicking some buttons. I will go ahead and I'm going to claim that I know we always go with a random numbers. So I would like us to draw tonight. Oh, we got 2 giveaways, so we'll do the second one once Johnny's ready to go here.
There's something that's not quite right.
That could have been said a few hours ago when we opened the podcast.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess I'm going to wait on Johnny.
Yeah,
here.
let me do one thing real quick here to make sure that I have the right
stuff.
to make sure I have the right stuff.
Oh.
So Phil, just a couple of seconds here, Terry.
Oh, I got to fill time. I don't have anything to talk about. I would like to quickly mention again, super excited that on Sunday night I did get out of town from the Pro Tour Championships, and then all day, she had the day off even from school. Quick shout out, my daughter Allison turned 11. She is my oldest of 2 daughters, and it was pretty cool to be home with her, and she's PDGA 40738, and hopefully she's going to be playing in the women's global event this upcoming year. I'm not sure which one, but hopefully we'll be playing in a women's global event, her alongside her sister. But it was awesome that she was home from school, and I got to spend the day with her. There's been a number of Pro Tour Championships that have fallen on her birthday or birthday weekend, and I just physically haven't been home for her birthday. In fact, another fun fact, her first birthday of her life, as in 365 days old, we were in Monroe, Wisconsin, which is about 2.5 hours southwest-ish of where I live. And we took her over to that side of the state because I was proposing a disc golf course to the township that night.
Nice.
And
Classy.
they approved the disc golf course. It's still in to this day. But that's how she spent her first birthday. We went to a dive pub or bar, or it was a dive restaurant. Ate there and went for her first birthday, and I proposed to have a new disc golf course installed. So
great.
It's always been in her blood.
All right. I've got everything settled now. I knew the number 213 didn't quite look right. It's actually 200, so I had to get rid of
200 on the dot. Did we lose people?
200 on
people
the
don't
dot.
like us?
No, I actually accidentally added a couple the things in 2 or 3 times. So that's why we had more than we normally do. So yeah, so right now we currently have exactly 200. I am going to bring this up so we
feels about 400 short.
It does feel about at least 400 short. I would let's get to those Jomez numbers. I got like 2,200.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. If you're a Jomez patron, just, come throw a buck our way. It's not going to hurt you.
We want... Never mind.
Anyway, all right. Where is this that I'm looking for? Here we go.
This is why we don't get any money. You click the wrong button.
I clicked the wrong buttons. All right, so what number are we going to generate?
Number
Maybe
2.
Number
second
2?
number.
So the first number, as you see, is 112. The second number is 145. I go over to this spreadsheet, which has everyone's data in it that I'm not going to show. 145. Terry, what's that name?
Oh, geez, that guy. He's going to have to wait till I see him in Thailand.
Ryan Pilcher. Congratulations, Ryan Pilcher. You are the winner of the first disc
of tonight.
And we'll give away one more right away.
Yep, let's do it. 2 more numbers. Generate 2 more numbers,
Generate
Johnny.
2 more numbers, so we're just going to hit generate 2 more times. 122, and then the winning number is 162, so I scroll down on this one. Scott Reek.
Thank you, Scott. Scott down in the Kansas City area. He owns he owns thousands of Frisbees, let's be real. He's about to get another one.
He's going to get one more. So thank you to our Patreon supporters everywhere. You know we love you the most.
Yes. And I did have a few people. I know we saw a few people wearing some shirts, some of the SmashBoxxTV shirts. Also, a couple people said, hey, love the long form. Love that you guys go for hours and hours and hours. It helps fill my day. So believe it or not, almost as many times as you hear someone complain that we're too long of a show, I get almost just as many people that say, oh, it's great. Like, you're not long enough. You don't fill an entire day. And then someone usually follows it up with, how do you talk for so long? Like,
long.
I've been working a lot of years on this.
And I've said this so many times. If we didn't do this on Tuesday nights, it would just be this same thing spread out like 5 days over the phone.
Yeah.
So it's best that we get this
Might as well
all
just
out.
hit record.
Might as well just hit record anyway, because we're going to be talking about it, and then we get to share it with you guys.
Oh, yes, Ryan. You will be at Cold Turkey, so maybe we'll make the delivery even sooner than that. And I already got a massive complaint. Came in from Tom McManus. He is the assistant tournament director of the Cold Turkey. So, Tom, there's your shout out. No, shut up. I'm just kidding. Start taking registrations. Daniel George talking about how often I maneuver the microphone. I do.
I
I'll
touch
admit
the
it
microphone
frustrates
a lot
me.
too, like this.
I don't know how much if people can hear it or not. I would think you can't hear me adjusting it much.
No, that's what these arms are for.
But I gotta say, for some reason
you can't just let it be.
I can't.
I don't move it so much as just touch it like this for some reason. Put my fingers on it and like this, but I don't like up and down shift it.
It's usually because I need to see certain things on my screen and I'm moving stuff around. And you're right.
A lot of excuses.
Exactly. All right. Reading off the board. The Palms are only Smashbox patrons.
Well, thank you, Aaron.
We appreciate that so much. Aaron and Beth, big shout outs. Minnesota, we said it. Man, I wish we got $1 every time we mentioned Minnesota. Then we'd be doing well.
Yeah, they'd probably take away $1 every time we mentioned Illinois, though. So, for as nice as we are to Minnesota, we're that equally not nice to Illinois.
I guess that sounds like a fair statement. I don't know that I have too much else. I don't know if our board has specific topics or thoughts or ideas that we didn't touch on tonight.
We did. I don't know if we actually talked about a little bit media related, the USDGC numbers that were released. The live streaming numbers, USDGC.
We didn't talk about that last week's show?
Don't know if we did or not. Either way, they had 2,500 paid subscribers to the. No, we didn't, because I know I think I sent you the message when you were gone this particular weekend. And so I don't believe we
Oh, yeah, correct. Okay, yeah.
I don't believe we talked about 2,500 people paid, and they made just over $20,000. 5,000 of it went to Edge, and 15,000 of it turned around and went to the production costs, went into media costs. So I know we had kind of predicted it was going to be closer to 3,000 to 4,000, but apparently 2,500 is the number.
Yeah, so that's an interesting number, and here's what I'll say. It sets a bar somewhere for up-to-date pay-per-view standards, and maybe standards isn't the right word, but up-to-date pay-per-view analytics or metrics or numbers. So we have something to measure that against. Now, so many follow-up questions, one of which is, would we see that at any other event, we'll say on the Pro Tour or the National Tour or the Worlds? Is that number going to be the same if it was the opener of the Pro Tour at the Memorial? Would it be the same a few weeks later at Waco? So on and so forth. All right. So, or would we see people be more inclined or likely to say, you know what, I would like to support the live broadcast. I'd like to support the Pro Tour, and I would opt in for a reasonably priced annual subscription, whatever that number is. And reasonably priced, I'll put in air quotes.
Different
and
for every person.
100% subjective. But if someone said to you, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you 10 events on the Pro Tour plus the championships. So effectively, we'll call it 11 events. What is the dollar figure that you'd be comfortable with if you were to get all 11 of those events to you?
Me personally, are you asking me that question? Or?
Sure, we'll start with you. I don't value much of your opinion, but we'll start with you anyway because you're sitting right here.
If you told me, I think it might depend on if I'm getting just the live or if I'm getting the live and the post-production. If we just say live, you have to realize that you're getting not just, like with USDGC, we saw one card coverage. 3 days.
Correct.
With the Pro Tour, I would make the assumption it's going to be FPO and MPO. So we're getting 2 rounds of coverage. I think a good number, a solid number, would probably be $60 to $70. That's how I would feel. That's about $5 a month.
Or a weekend? Oh, you're just saying a month.
I was
Okay.
going to say, I average about $5 a month. You could also say $5 an event.
Sure.
Around there, $5.50 or $5.25, whatever that might be, $5.20, $5.05. So I think $60 to $70 if you told me it was a season pass for just the Pro Tour stuff. Now, the other question is, would any other event, if it was sold as individually, get these type of numbers? And I'm going to say probably not, other than Worlds. I think Worlds could pull in that type of money, or that type of, I don't even say money, but that type of viewership to say, hey, we're going to do this live. It's going to be $10 or $8 if you're a PDGA subscriber. And I believe that Worlds is really the only other event that could probably throw that type of weight around that USDGC does. Maybe a European Open, but I don't even know if that would work, honestly. And maybe it's just my own skewed viewpoint, but as great as the European Open is, the timing of it with where it is would have an issue, and I don't necessarily know if we would see that amount of people be able to sign up, or would do that as opposed to the post-production if you were talking just live.
Yeah, and I'll admit I have not put a ton of thought into an exact number or dollar figure, and it's really interesting to me as to how you break it down, like you just said, or how one might justify it. And when you say, okay, we'll go with a round number of $60, and you say that's $5 a month, and there's clearly going to be a month like January where there's technically no live, and there's going to be a month like July that might have 2 or even 3 events, whatever, depending on how the weekends shake out. But if you're looking at it from that perspective of $5 a month, or I would go ahead and say if we had 6 rounds, on average, we have 6 rounds. It's 6+ for an event to have 6 rounds of coverage, 3 of MPO, 3 of FPO. Some have a couple more, but let's call it 6 rounds of coverage over the span of 10 events. That's another way to look at it. That's roughly 60 rounds. You're paying $1 per round to watch live disc golf. $1 per round. That's just another perspective of it. That seems reasonable to me. It doesn't seem like gouging. That doesn't seem like over the top. You could be quote unquote disc golf rich and still, in my opinion, afford that. That's nothing more than an arbitrary number that Johnny's thought of, and we're not claiming that it's going in that direction at all. I think finding that sweet spot though, and someone had just Matthew on the board said, $75 plus a shirt or disc. Sure, that equals out to be about the same as a straight $60. Maybe there's something or an additional support pack or item that might cost a few dollars more, so it feels like you're getting something tangible.
A unique disc, or
sure.
like a
supporter disc,
a supporter,
or
a wall hanger, a collector, or maybe a special T-shirt or something. I still want to do, and maybe it's not us, maybe we need to talk to the Pro Tour for next year, like a rock concert T-shirt that has all the dates on the back and like some kick-ass logo on the front.
Yeah,
and
that's every event already. There's a Pro Tour shirt that does just that.
It has all the events
dates
with the dates on it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Because you don't ever go to them.
I don't ever go to them.
That's why.
But that it's kind of sad that I haven't seen it anywhere then.
I just know that it exists.
I'm sure. Now that you I believe you that it does. I want to see one then. In regards to the live discussion, if you're out on disc golf course review at all under the USDGC thread, Harold Duvall has been kind of chiming in lately. He asked a couple things about some feedback. He said, what are examples of good material to show on the live broadcast when there's a break in action?
Is this recent?
This is as of the 17th. So 5 days ago he put this. Or to add variety to the action. Question 2, what is a reasonable price to pay for pay-per-view? Question 2A, does a commercial-free presentation change the reasonable price? 2C, I asked him, where did 2B go?
Yeah.
But I don't know.
To be or not to be, that is the question. Hey-oh!
Way to go, Shakespeare. 2C, are there any examples of disc golf commercials that have engaged you in a positive way or at least not irritated you? Question 3,
That's a leading question.
how would watching in person or online change if the final day was moved from Saturday to Sunday? And 4, is it unreasonable to prohibit some or all cell phone use if the local cell towers continue to be a technical bottleneck for high-quality filming to the live audience online? So those are the questions he laid out.
Which I feel like of all, either directly or indirectly, at some point we've touched on in the last 5 years as well.
Certainly.
And there are a lot of great questions there.
I responded to every one of them. And more or less, I said that good material is things clearly that are engaging. Player profiles, with the USDGC, you have such a history on that course that you could probably do a cool, at least 10 to 15 cool videos, 1-minute highlights of a particular hole and just spread it out through the broadcast. Like, oh, these are significant shots on hole 1 or 17 or 16 or 14, whatever you may do. What's the reasonable price? I said what they charged, honestly. $8 to $10 for USDGC, $8 to $10 for Worlds. If you know what you're getting. I
Sure.
didn't have a problem with that. Does a commercial-free presentation change the price? I said I didn't think so. I think they could have had commercials, and I expected them to have some, but limited commercials. Like, you can't do what we do with the Pro Tour, where we show 2 commercials after every set of drives when you're doing pay-per-view. I think you would have to pull
Reduce
out
those,
probably a
and limit
third to half of those commercials. Are there any examples of disc golf commercials that have engaged you in a positive way? I said take a look at what Tyler Breckley's doing with disc golf comedy. Right now, it seems like a lot of people enjoy the humorous commercials that are keep it to a simple sales pitch. Here is the lion. This is how it throws. This is what we do with it. It's a mid-range or putter or whatever the lion is. I see the commercial every time that we do it, and I don't ever pay attention to the commercials. And is it unreasonable to prohibit all or some cell phone usage? I said it is unreasonable, but what I would suggest is before the round, and I'd love to do this with the Pro Tour as well, just to ask people, can you please turn your phone to airplane mode? Like, just don't stream. Try not to send a bunch of photos. Like, if you want to take photos and take video, just wait till after the round to upload it, to help out with the cellular coverage. Because in a place like Rock Hill, as long as you have that high condensed amount of people in one area, you're going to overload the few cell towers that Rock Hill has, especially closer to the course. And we just, on Disc Golf budget, can't afford to wire a course with true, we've said it before, true wiring, fiber or SDI. It can't do it. That's tens of thousands of dollars and tens of thousands of feet of cabling. So those are the answers I gave him. He has not responded in general to me particularly, or really to anybody since then too much. So those were kind of my thoughts in general on the subject. But it's a kind of a good thread, and if you want Harold's input, he actually asked a couple other things as far as what they're considering for 2020 at USDGC, but I didn't really have any input on that.
Well, it will be interesting to see what their business model is for next year in terms of how they do. Now, it's not a stretch or far for us to say that even if it was 3,000 subscribers, I know they said at least 2,500. But if they got to 3,000, they would have probably mentioned that. But
they said $20,000, so 2,500 to 2,600 makes sense based on the $8, and some people pay 10. But
so let's just say it was $20,000, and let's say they made the contribution as they did to the other company, to Edge. At that point, they operated at a very significant loss. They operated the media at a very significant loss. Now, of course, we don't know all the ins and outs of the contract, nor are we owed that in any way, shape, or form. But I can tell you that Fulcrum, their
budget.
I was going to say budget. Their their invoice was for more than $15,000 when it was all said and done. So they operated very much so at a loss.
$15,000 was probably what they just paid in labor to their crew. At 10 people, I estimated about $250 a day per person. Some people maybe a little less, people maybe a little more. Times probably 5 days of being on site. That comes to, $12,500. But again, it's probably closer to 15 if you take a rough estimate on people are probably going to get paid a little more, some maybe a little less.
So we're talking about substantial budgets there, and we're talking about, and I know we kind of, I don't want to say beat it to death earlier too, just their sheer man and woman power, the physical laborers and people that they had there was nearly triple what we operate with on a given weekend. So we know of where the costs are. They may have even had more. I don't know that they could have had less than us in any specific regard. It sounds as if they had more. That's an incredibly expensive weekend. And then to think about how can that get duplicated and to think about then who pays for it. There's just so many questions that are still left on the table. And then we always circle back around to, where's the value put on live? And if post-production were to be ever delayed a day or more, how does that impact live numbers, and what does that mean as a viewer experience? I think those are all good questions that Harold will have to answer for himself, and I'm sure they'll bring back to the entire USDGC team and have a really healthy discussion about all of those things. So, all right, Kurt says, wonder if apps like UDisc can add an area lock to keep people at the event locked out of the live feed, just like sports does no cable versus local channel.
Like a blackout? No, you really can't do that with. First of all, UDisc doesn't control any of that. They're merely restreaming when they work with us. They're merely restreaming our YouTube channel. They're embedding it into their app. But even YouTube does not allow a region block for a specific area, like a zip
Can we
code.
block other countries though? Or do they just do that automatically?
They do that automatically. I don't think we can do that. I've never.
What if we build a wall?
Well, maybe. No, I don't believe there's any way for YouTube to do that. Now, it's possible that maybe other content streamers, such as Amazon or whomever, could do that. I'm not familiar with their setup, but with YouTube, that's not the case. So no, it's you can't really do that. And for the most part, it's not people on the course watching the show. It's them streaming to Instagram
themselves.
and streaming themselves, and
Well, and I'm sure streaming themselves. Upload is more of a concern typically than download, although both are using the signals and the airwaves and microwaves and whatever else. But yeah, if you're streaming something or constantly uploading things, that's our biggest concern, is an upload signal that's going back and forth or that's going up. That's our number one concern and challenge. Someone says, and also with the phone gig, I didn't hear anything about flashes off. I did hear about turning the phone to silent. I will say, someone this weekend, Jeff Spring, had made mention, which I think should be done at every event all the time before a lead card or any card goes off. Just as a very polite, gentle, friendly reminder, hey, everyone, now's a great time. Just triple check that your phone is off. I even go into panic mode at that point. I'm like, wait, because I'm next to near players, and I would just be mortified if I had some kind of a distraction go off during a crucial time or any time. And so asking players to do that. I did notice at one point during the weekend, I turned, and there was someone somewhat off in a distance was filming something. I don't know if they were streaming it or taking photos, but their flash was on. And it was in the middle of the day, but it was distracting enough that you could see it. And there's a lot of shadows and whatnot out at that course. So even though they were off in a distance, all you see is this flashlight coming off of this guy's phone. And usually when you see that too, you like half the time they don't even know or realize that it's happening. But yeah, those are things that you want to be somewhat alert, yes, and aware of for sure when you're out on the course. As for getting people to turn off cell phones, just in general, we're just not at that level of a few of the PGA events that do that and can more strictly enforce that.
Correct. They are like when you go to the Masters or something like that, if they see you with your phone out, they kick you out.
Yeah.
No, I don't believe we're in a spot for that. But now, if you politely ask the people, I think most of our spectators would understand because they're probably golf fans. They've probably watched live at home and maybe have complained like, why is the cell signal so bad in this spot? It might just be a bad area, like we saw on 16 when they were way down in the ravine at Charlotte. We had a little bit of cell glitch there.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a low point after kind of coming up and it's surrounded by woods. After that, it, for the most part, cleared up. But if you just said, hey guys, we would really appreciate it if you refrained from streaming, or if you just put your phone into airplane mode, that will eliminate any sort of alerts and all that stuff. Then we don't have to worry about it. I think a lot of people would do that. I don't think you can enforce it. I don't think you're going to see that, but in general, I would have no problem asking it. And I think asking it might be enough where if you had a majority of the people stop, or even maybe half, that could be enough to say, all right, cool, we're going to free up a little bit of capacity on these particular cell towers.
Yeah, and that's going to be tough because when you see a place like the European Open with whatever they projected, 33 or 3,800 people in the gallery, it's just going to get tougher and tougher as we continue to move down that road. And
my hope is if we ever start getting galleries that size, that maybe we'll have other options.
Yeah, and also that budgets
increase.
As galleries grow, that hopefully means media budgets are growing, which is then
exactly
providing more options and opportunities at that point as well. So there was no doubt. I know we already gave them their props, but no shortage of players checking UDisc, except for maybe Chris Dickerson.
Except for Jerry Coling.
No, I think he was checking it. I just don't think he realized
that the order mattered.
That the order on the UDisc app itself mattered. So that's what I think. But clearly, it's a tool. And I had thought of it earlier. Do you have an advantage at all teeing off and playing in the afternoon versus the morning? So Saturday, if somebody played at 9 a.m. versus someone playing at noon or 1 or whatever, or anytime you're later in the day, knowing what scores are, quote-unquote, in the clubhouse, and knowing you just need to be in the top 4, is there an advantage to having that later tee? And have you earned that because you had more points?
Yes. I mean, there is an advantage. You knowing that I don't think it's going to change your plan until you get to like 5 or 6 holes left. If you look at it and you say, oh, crap, I really need to make up 3 strokes in the next 5 or 6 holes. I should probably be playing a little more aggressively. Then, yes, that is an advantage you have earned throughout the year. Other than that, I don't think there's that much of an advantage. But that is the primary one right there, knowing what everybody shot. And that is the advantage of tour points matter.
Speaking of tour points mattering and coining that phrase, what a pleasure to see Steve Dodge and his youngest daughter, along with his mom. They were out there this weekend. I believe all 3 days. I watched them. I saw them in person, consuming the coverage. Taking in. You're not consuming coverage at that point. Watching live is what they were doing. Yeah, and it was great to see him and talk to him, and had some great conversation about who we both thought was going to win that particular round.
They almost got hit by a disc.
Yeah. Okay. Well, where did that happen again?
I think it was the MPO round. I don't recall. I just remember that one of our cameramen panned to the side, and I saw people jump out of the way of the disc. And it was Steve and his daughter and his mother, and I chuckled because earlier in the round we had seen a T-shirt that someone had made that was the Steve Dodge face, that the Pro Tour, the old podcast, the outline with the glasses, and on the top it just said "Thanks, Steve."
Yeah,
and I thought that was wonderful to see something like that. We made sure. Todd Dodge, who was one of our cameramen, made sure to show that. He requested that I get a chance to put it on camera, and I had no problems doing
Yeah.
that. And I got a very it brought a smile to my face. But then thinking when it almost hit him, all I thought was, "Thanks, Steve."
Yeah, exactly.
So I got a chuckle to myself about that.
Yeah, that was Jason Carl from Idlewild, the Idlewild event, the Natty. He was there caddying for Rebecca Cox, who he has sponsored and they've supported for quite some time. And then, like you said, he was wearing the shirt that just said "Thank you, Steve Dodge," and it had Steve's outline, as you mentioned. It was pretty awesome. And again, we all wouldn't be here talking about the Disc Golf Pro Tour if it weren't for the groundwork that he laid all those years ago, and then bringing us in the fold, and then firing us, and then bringing us back in the fold. Yeah, it's been a wild ride.
It's been a year.
It's been a year. I know. We're just a few weeks away. Are we gonna get fired again anytime soon? Are we gonna get that?
It would be a few weeks away because
it's like November or so last year, November, December.
Because I remember being.
So we'll just wait right here by our phone.
I remember being camping with my son at their Bottle Rocket Boy Scout weekend and getting that call, and I was thinking like, that's coming up. It's the 1 year anniversary. We should call him and fire him.
Oh, good call.
Like, Steve, I'm sorry, but
you're fired.
You're fired.
Somehow we could pull that.
I don't know
off,
from
I'm
what,
sure.
but just in general.
I don't want to dig too far deep into it because it is such a long way out. But there's already chatter of what will we see at Vegas. Vegas not opening the national tour.
I think you're going to see
Vegas not opening the pro tour. Obviously,
half the pros there.
And I think I was told, and I did not research it myself, but I think it's been confirmed. I think it's a $300 entry fee. Which is substantial.
I don't think you're going to see the number of pros that we saw. Here's what I think might happen, because it's going to probably go Wintertime Open, and then Vegas, and then Memorial.
Mm-hmm.
The Wintertime is probably going to be sponsored by Discraft. More or less, that's what it was last year. So we'll just make an assumption that it is this year. Vegas is sponsored by Innova. I would not be shocked to see a majority of the Innova players go to Vegas, majority of the Discraft players go to Wintertime, and then they meet at the Memorial. Now, I think you're going to probably get some people that might do both, or some people that, choose one or the other, not related to their sponsor. But to me, that seems like, if I had the choice, if I was a Discraft sponsored player, and I had a choice between playing a Discraft event, a pretty big upcoming event sponsored by Discraft, versus a very big event sponsored by Innova, I would probably choose that one. And if I was an Innova player, I would probably choose Vegas. I won't say half. I bet you 70%. I bet we see 70% of the top pros hit Vegas.
I just hope it's snowing like it did last year when I got there, which was bizarre. Speaking of Innova, I do want to give a shout out. I had the pleasure, it was last week, Thursday. It was Thursday. We had the podcast, Tuesday night still. Thursday, I went down to Rock Hill. I was staying up in Charlotte. I drove back down to the Rock Hill area. I was welcomed with open arms to walk around in Innova's warehouse, factory warehouse, whatever you want to call it. Great to catch up with people. I got, there's the rock display, the USDGC rock display, and it was kind of funny to look at all of the rocks that have been put into this, we'll say, I don't want to call it a museum, but this put on display, and then realizing I had almost essentially every single one that was in there, and so many artifacts and history of the USDGC all on full display. They did a phenomenal job with that. And then really for like the next 3-ish hours, outside of a production phone call with the Pro Tour, I was inside the Innova factory just walking around.
How much did you buy?
I went really light, I feel like. And here's
$500, more or less.
Oh, way more than that.
Oh, okay. $750.
More than that. And I didn't get billed yet, but it should be more than that. So here's what I did. Well, I go in there with the notion of like, oh, a bunch of people are going to want a bunch of cool stuff. So I'll pick a bunch of that stuff out. I always go back to my old standbys of everything I like to throw.
Black putters.
The stuff I like to throw that I will hand pick. I'll dig through a box of something. I'll hand pick like 5 that look really awesome. And then I'll get them boxed up and they'll end up coming home with me. And then I'll never get around to throwing them because I don't play anymore. And I always think, man, I like Pro Race. Maybe I should pick up 5 really cool looking. I'll specifically go through hundreds of them to find the ones that I think look the best. And then I'll grab them and I'll put those in my order. Like I said, I've realized this. I said this to some people there. I said, I will take those 5 and they'll go right next to the other 45 from the last 9 times I've been there. And I just have this box or 2 of really cool looking Pro Race that I would love to throw someday, but I'll never get around to it because I don't play anymore. And then you extrapolate that out times some KC AVRs or some KC Rocks, some other drivers, whatever.
Sidewinder. Or...
whatever it might be. So that's what I'll end up doing. Now, this time, I ended up, as I was digging around, I came across a lot of black discs, which always just look cool. They may or may not be practical to throw. Some think they're great. Some hate them.
Yeah, you don't.
I always think they look good.
You don't particularly throw them usually.
I throw a few, but not too many. Well, I would be digging around, and all of a sudden, off in the corner of my eye, the 150 Pro Bosses with a cool David Wiggins stamp on it. I'd see those. I'd be like, there's 20 black ones right there. I don't want to be piggish. I'm just going to take 5. So I'd pick 5 of those. And I did that times, a dozen or so molds. And next thing you know, this order has 50 or 60 or so black discs alone. And anything that has a stock stamp, which is, well, every one of these discs in particular, out of the 120-ish or whatever I picked out, all of them that have stock stamps.
You heard that was 120-ish.
Whatever the number was. I am working with Innova. They're going to take my Disc Golf Guy logo, just the tiny little silhouette, and we're going to get a new stamp made, and then that's going to get stamped on top of the stock stamp, or in addition to the stock stamps. So they're going to be all hand-picked, all particular, and I will likely make some to many, or many to none, I don't know, some available for sale to the public. Now, I don't want them all.
Yes, he does. But he knows he can't have them all. And
but I probably won't.
Shouldn't.
And so anyway, that's my plan. You'll see them when they hit Facebook at some point. And some will become giveaways here.
Correct.
There will be a really cool disc that I think looks really sharp and really neat, and it'll be truly, almost one of a kind because it'll have that stamp in addition to the stock stamp, my stamp on it, and we make that a Patreon giveaway for a given night. So there'll be some will filter into that. Most won't, but some will.
I know all of this.
And they've also beefed up their apparel and hat selections, and
That's cool.
I managed to pick out 30 or 40 hats, and again, with the notion that plenty will be available for somebody to make purchases. So shout out to Innova. Thank you to David and everyone I saw. There's a lot of old friends in there that maybe I only see once or twice a year or once every couple years. Mm-hmm. And just to roam around inside Innova, and a lot of our companies are starting to kind of go with that model, and it's just a really unique experience. And just a quick update for everyone. They typically allow, we'll say, retail shopping in there, I believe on Fridays only normally. You have to organize it ahead of time, and I think there's a slight, for lack of a better term, we'll call it a cover charge. There's a slight cover charge. I think they're just trying not to have every Tom, Dick, and Harry,
just wondering,
or every 13-year-old, that wants to walk in and might consume hours of someone's time, also that they can walk out with one particular, one single disc or something. So it's a very cool opportunity. So if you ever want that experience, that is usually reserved for just Fridays, and you must call ahead. Okay, that's my fun experience. It's been a couple years since I've been in there, and picked out some really
quite a
good
few
ones.
since I've been in there.
I think we can wrap things up, Johnny, if you don't have anything else.
I don't.
I'm reading over the board. Looks like most of the stuff is in check. Yeah, I think we're all good to go. I would like to thank everyone for joining us. Thanks to all the media teams. Thanks to the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Thanks to Charlotte Disc Golf Club. Sign up for the Cold Turkey 14, which will be coming out in just a few days. I want to thank, again, ahead of time, RPM Disc, who's going to be the title sponsor of that particular event. For Johnny V and myself, Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, this has been podcast episode 270's After Show. I'll miss you next week. I'll be in Croatia, slumming it. So you'll have to make do without me. Until then, we'll see you next week when you step inside the Smashbox.